is 6:30 on July the 8th, 2026. This meeting of the Montpelier City Council is called to order. Round two, or item two, meeting logistics and remote instructions. I'm going to keep this simple. Display your first and last name if you're joining remotely. When speaking, state your name and where you live. Keep your comments to the allotted time so that others have the opportunity to speak. If you have several questions, please ask them all together. Focus your comments on the agenda item under discussion. Direct remarks towards policies, decisions, and ideas, not individuals. Avoid comments about a person's character or intent. Wait to be recognized by the mayor before speaking. Follow the rules of procedure included in the agenda packet, which will guide how the meeting is conducted and may be applied as needed to maintain orderly discussion. Now, before we move on to our next agenda item, I invite you to just join me in coming fully into the room. I'm going to put my feet flat on the floor and take a few breaths. And now for an offering of a few words, slightly paraphrased. I keep cruising, can't stop, won't stop moving. It's like I got this music, baby, in my mind saying it's gonna be all right. Because the player's gonna play, the hater's gonna hate, and I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake. Shake it off. Shake it off. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah. All right, item number 3, we're going to approve the agenda. There was some discussion about the order of items, and so there's a proposed change. Each of you have a copy of it on your spot, and I think they're also there. They have been added to the agenda packet. If anyone is online and wants to see them, under the approve the agenda. Mine's not updated, but so if we have a quick look at this, it just sort of changes the order so that we can do our best to respect the time of the folks who are coming here to speak to us about these various items. Is there a motion to accept this, or is there any question about it? There are no additions or deletions of agenda items, just a reordering. Yes, Kelly?
Read the proposed.
Sure, that's a great idea. Okay, so the proposed order would be to call the order, and then meeting logistics, which is what we've just done, approving the agenda, which is the item we're currently on. And then following that, we would have council would have a discussion of the rules of procedure, both how we're going to handle, things now, as well as a discussion about how we might like to have things moving forward. Then general business and appearances. Then we'll do the consent agenda. Then reappointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. The Housing Trust Fund criteria is number 8. Number 9 is the municipal tax rate. We have some aspirational time that we'd like to try and hold ourselves to, and that would get us to a break at about 8:15 if all goes exceedingly well. Number 10 would be the manager's fresh eyes report. At 11, we would do the homelessness update, not 11 o'clock, item number 11. Number 12 would be the CVRPC future land use map report out. 13 is the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act report update. Number 14 would be discussing the city manager performance evaluation. Number 15 would be other business, followed by council reports, clerk's report, manager's report, mayor's report, as usual, and then followed by adjournment. Any questions? I'd entertain a motion to adopt this new order for this evening's agenda.
So moved.
Oh, second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. I forgot an important step. I guess it was. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
any opposed? Okay, the motion unanimously passes, and I had forgotten at the beginning because we were just in a board of Board of Civil Authority meeting. This has already been done, but Councilors Brown and Cohn, if you could identify yourselves because you're attending remotely, please.
Carrie Brown, District 3.
Thank you. Councilor Cohn?
Helen Cohn, District 2.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so with that change, can we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Or did we just do that?
Oh,
We just did that. Okay. Great. Off to a great start. All right, number 4, we're going to move on to a discussion of the rules and procedure. Manager Curry, would you like to tee this up for us?
I will, and I'd like to share some slides if that is okay.
Great, thank you.
Lights staying on.
Folks in the room, do you want these lights off? Would that help you? It would. Would you please? Thank you.
Just wondering.
Oh, yeah.
Councilor Gill.
As Kelly's getting that up, I'm gonna keep us on track.
Thank you very much for doing
So
that.
don't get mad if I
How many?
have a sign on. You have 25 minutes. I have a timer started. I'll restart it.
Okay.
I want to be on time today.
All right, thank you, everyone. So we're here to discuss today council's rules of procedure. And these are rules that are called out and authorized in the city charter as well as the state statute on open meeting law. I've provided you all with a memo that was in the packet that pulled out particular sections of the charter and the open meeting law that refer to the rules of procedure. These rules essentially dictate the norms that you all wish to run meetings by. Some things are already spelled out for you in the city charter and in law, and other things are left to your discretion and agreement as a body, which you then adopt in these rules of procedure. You're required to adopt these rules of procedure so that you can articulate to the public what those norms and expectations are going to be around meetings. Currently, we have been operating under a form of rules of procedure that have been amended multiple times since 1963. Oops, I'm sorry about that. And which you all adopted at your council orientation on March 11th of this year, following town meeting day and the re-election of officers. You also had a pilot program in effect at that time, which allowed for public comment twice during the meeting, at the beginning during general businesses and appearances, and at the end during other business, which you rescinded on June 10th. And at that time, it left a vacuum about what norm this body wanted to follow relative to general business and appearances, and when and on what types of items you wish to take public comment around. So this conversation is helping to fill that void. On your June 24th meeting, there was a motion to accept public comment on every single agenda item. And so that is sort of the last standing direction that you have on elements that impact the rules of procedure and your norms for running your meetings, setting your agenda, when you're going to take public comment. And so I would like to just humbly request some permission from you all to kind of facilitate a conversation about what I've observed to be some of the stickier topics that would benefit from some clearer direction from you all. And I propose that the best way we do that is to walk through the number of questions that I've laid out in the memo, discuss each one, and figure out where the majority of the board lies around these. It's possible that you won't all reach consensus around one or more items. And so I recommend that whatever the majority dictates for that is what you include in your rules of procedure. Based on the conversation and the direction that you provide today, I will take that back and produce an updated draft for circulation to you all that I hope we can adopt at the next meeting. These can become lengthy conversations though. And so if that's not possible, I might recommend we continue the conversation to a special meeting focused just on that topic. As I understand in your past practice, updating these rules was something that might ordinarily have been wrapped into like a strategic planning retreat or session. We're just getting a little bit ahead of that so we can dictate these norms and help create understanding for productive and efficient meetings. I'll stop there and see if there's any clarifying questions anyone has.
I'd like to say that what I think we're trying to do here, what we're not trying to do here today is adopt new language today. There is not redrafted language in front of us for us to adopt. We're trying to have a conversation around what direction will whoever drafts the language go away with to put into words for us to come back and readopt it another time. For today's meeting, if I could just sort of state what I think the norms are that this is how we've been doing things generally and how we should run today's meeting. We're not trying to design during this conversation what today's meeting is going to be. So general business and appearances, as was stated, has been at 5 minutes. So we'll keep that. I'm going to say this as though it's done. And then if there's objections, then please say so. But on individual items, we'll have 2 minutes for comment on them. And each agenda item should go roughly something like this. We'll have staff or committee or partner presentation and tee up of the thing. We'll have clarifying questions from council that is not debate or advocating for a position or trying to convince others, but it's just questions. Then we'll have public comments so that we can hear them. Then we would have a motion and then discussion and debate. And that's where you would try to make the case for why you're voting a certain way or sway someone else's opinion. And then we'll take a vote. We will hold public comment on every, putting in air quotes, agenda item, but we'll forego it on the council reports and the mayor's report and things like that. And then, so if everyone is in agreement that that's how we're running today's meeting, then we at least have a baseline for now, and that's just for this meeting. And then we can enter into these questions about how are we going to have conversations going forward? Does that seem amenable to everyone? Any objections or questions or additions? I'm not seeing anything online or in the room. So then that's how we're going to proceed for today. Thank you. Are there any questions for Manager Curry before you want to lead us through these questions, or do you want me to do it? I think it's great if you do it. Thank you.
Okay, this is your current practice, and Mark just reviewed the practice for moving forward for this meeting. I sent to you all some references and examples. The VLCT has a model, call it model code. It should be model rules of procedure. They're quite lengthy. They do restate some things that are already captured in law. We can decide whether to follow those or adopt the sections that they lay out and the information in there. I included references to Barry, Calais, and South Burlington's rules of procedure. Again, some are essentially one-pagers, some go much longer and provide additional detail, I think, based on how intricate you want your norms to be. These are the model code sections that VLCT proposes: purpose, application, organization, agendas, meetings, motions and voting, public participation, order, and meeting minutes. I would note that in their references, the information around agendas and meetings is a repetition of what's already spelled out in the open public meeting law that really covers what you're required to do as a body, what the city's required to do as far as warning the meetings, how to treat different types of meetings like regular, special, and emergency meetings, et cetera. And these other things are where we can, provide some of the detail that you may or may not wish to. So kind of diving into some of the questions around this. Do the VLCT model rules resonate with you all? Again, they are more organized. They have clearer sections spelled out. They are much lengthier than the ones you currently have on the books. And I'm open to omitting any sections or adding any if you think are necessary. And so I'll just start there to get a sense, because this will help provide the form of what future rules, future draft rules would look like to you all. And I'll look to the mayor to call on people, please.
Yeah. But the question is, you want to just restate that in?
It's just right behind you.
Oh, great.
What do you think of the
Oh, shit.
VLCT section?
Is the VLCT model rules a good jumping off point for us to start from? Counselor Alfano.
I don't see why not. I mean, I looked at it, it seems as good as anything else. It's a format that obviously works in a lot of situations. Why not start there? And if we find that we need to amend it, we can do that.
Okay, anyone take a different position on that?
Can I ask a question?
Counselor Doyle, go ahead.
I'm curious if you, would you recommend, I agree. Would you recommend though, omitting certain sections that you find redundant just in the sake of expediency of the document? Or do you feel like we should just adopt these wholesale?
I think there's a lot of opportunity to streamline. You know, the intent of the document is for it to be workable and a reference for you and the public.
Right.
And so keeping that in mind, I don't think it needs to be quite as wordy. There will also be some additions from charter language that will have to go in there.
Great. And that's work that you'll do in the intervening.
Right.
That sounds great.
Great, Counselor Alfano?
Yes, to be clear, I was endorsing the form of the VLCT, not the precise language.
Great. All right, seeing no other hands raised, it sounds like,
Carrie's hand is raised.
oh, sorry, Carrie, you're very small on my screen. Go ahead, Counselor Brown.
Sorry, yes, is the question before us as Sal was saying, the form and the general structure and outline, or the exact wording of the model rules?
I think the question before us is, does the VLCT model serve as a good jumping off point or a good starting point for staff to develop new language around?
Okay. All right, I think that's fine.
Okay. All right, any other comments or additions?
Any elements that anyone think are missing from those? For example, South Burlington has added additional sections beyond this. So if there are particular issues that this board would like to have addressed, I think it would be good to call those out.
Counselor Gill.
One of from a structure perspective in terms of our agenda, I think I'm trying to get the acronym correct. What is it? The Vermont League of Cities and Towns?
VLCT.
Okay.
VLCT.
Acronym world. I think that is fine. I think in addition to that, what I would like to see, which I think that we're missing in our agendas and how we're structured, is linking our agenda items back to our strategic plan and being very focused on what we said we want to accomplish. And every meeting, in my opinion, we should be referring back to that, and anything outside of that, you know, I think we should have a discussion is that how much time, effort, and energy do we focus our time on items that are outside our strategic impact plan? Because I think that's important.
Okay, I can try to think creatively around that.
Okay, Counselor Brown.
Yeah, I would love to see something in there, and I think the VLCT model mostly has this, but to clarify around public comment, that there will always be an opportunity for public comment at each meeting, and that in general, this is the procedure that we like to follow. And at the same time, that whoever's chairing the meeting is ultimately in charge of how that goes. So, I mean, we can word it as specifically or not as possible, but I just want to give us room for handling public comment differently in different meetings should something arise that calls for it. Not that it's just willy-nilly, whatever the chair wants to do, but that there may be, you know, maybe we've run out of time. We're going to not take more public comment, or, you know, something like that.
Counselor Sheridan.
How do we handle new stuff that is not part of our strategic plan? I mean, we may have stuff come up that nobody has anticipated and like that. So, I mean, we have to, it's not like we can't deal with it.
It's a good question. I mean, I I'm to recognize myself, I guess. I think however we draft the language, it's important that we set out what the expectations are so that people know what to expect, but we also don't completely bind the hands of whoever happens to be in this room now or in the future to say, I mean, for example, if we're very prescriptive about a particular order that the agenda must follow, we don't want to lock ourselves into something and not be able to be flexible as the situation allows. Or if we want to say a specific amount of time for a specific sort of thing, what happens if we have a huge number of people or only one person? Do we have latitude to give people more or to adjust the time? I feel like having that type of flexibility built into the language is going to be very important.
I'm going to keep maybe walking us through, because I think some of your questions are begging
Jumping ahead.
some other things. For example, later, I've proposed in the memo, do we want to add a time for future agenda items where a list of potential topics for council consideration is brought forward in advance meetings, and then you all can direct staff. We actually don't want to spend council time on this, or we think staff can handle that, or fine, but we only want to spend 10 minutes on it. Might be an opportunity to wrestle with those things while keeping to a efficient agenda. So I'll go on to the next, and we can always come back to any of these, and this is always a living draft.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. So regarding public comment, there's many questions around public comment. So my next few slides start to dive into that. This one is talking about where in the agenda does city council desire to have public comment known as general businesses and appearances. So in this case, I'm talking about, the language that the law requires, which is a reasonable opportunity for members of the public to provide comment. It's not the exact language, but reference to the exact language in your memos that you are required to include in an open public meeting. So you can decide when you want to do that. You can decide if you want to do that right at the beginning. You can decide if you want to do that at the end. You can decide if you want to do that after break. This is your norm upon which to make that choice.
Councilor Alfano.
Well, it's been suggested that we do it after our break. And I like that idea for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of, the meeting really is around dinner time for a lot of people. And if they've got kids and stuff, maybe they can't get away to get to the meeting. But I also don't want to keep people waiting forever. And so after break, if break is around 8:30, it seems like a reasonable time. But I also think it depends on how we handle public comment. And I think there should be a time limit, which is another one of your questions. And depending on, I think there should be a maximum time per speaker. And I think then we should also establish a total time for all speakers, so that if there are 20 speakers, we need to divide the maximum time, the total time, into 20 parts, so as to not be here all night. And I think the chair of the meeting really ought to have the ability to make an exception.
Councilor Sheridan.
I think we should try to pin down the time somewhat so people know consistently. I mean, right now, everybody knows it's in the beginning of the meeting. But let's say we have it after the break, we should have a time frame there where it's going to be within these minutes, so people will know when they might want to come or tune in online. Let's say if we break at 8:20, we're going to have it at 8:30. Something like that. It doesn't have to be exact, but maybe a little window where this is where it's going to fall in, so people can know that they don't come here early and wait, but they have kind of a general idea. Oh, it's going to be in this time. I'll run down then, or I'll go online then, but we can figure that out.
Councilor Brown.
Yeah, I also think it's really helpful to have a very specific time when general business and appearances happens. And public comment on other agenda items. I don't know if we're talking about that right now, but I'm just thinking about the general business and appearances. And I like having it first thing because I think that is really predictable. We're not doing it first thing tonight, but you know, my preference would be we do it right at the beginning, as we have been doing it, so people know that's when it's going to happen. My concern with doing it after the break is that we don't always take our break at the same time. We could get really strict with ourselves and say we're stopping at 8:20 so we can have public comment from 8:30 to 9, or whatever it is. But I still feel like if I were wanting to give public comment, I'd be happier doing it at the very beginning of the meeting. No, I can't just come to the beginning of the meeting, and then I can go. So that's where I'd like to see it.
I'd like to just say that if we're talking about how to construct language that we're going to adopt, that's going to guide how we're going to run meetings going forward, just this conversation alone, I think we want to avoid language that will bind us to say, oh, if we want to make a change and do it, let's say we try it out and we want to change it back, then we have to have a whole new agenda item. We have to discuss it and vote on whether we're going to move it back. I would prefer if we were allowed to just make the agendas, set the order, publicize it to everyone so that everyone knows what to expect for the upcoming meeting. And then if we want to make a change, we could just make that change and not have language that locks us into one specific thing.
5 minutes? Okay, we're not gonna get through this. I might recommend that we, on just this item, kind of check in with counselors on what the preference is, because we have 2 clear differences here proposed for when general businesses and appearances will occur. I've heard either at the beginning of the meeting, which of course comes after you approve the agenda, or after break in the middle of your meeting.
Okay, since we're not trying to take binding action, oh, go ahead, Counselor Gill.
I mean, not to have a full-on research project here, but it might be good to ask our constituents, right, to do a little polling, right? Because we can just assume that they want to come at 6:30 and that's a great time for them. But maybe the people that want to talk are eating dinner and with their families. Maybe 8:30 would be better. Like, I think as you all know, I like data-driven decisions. So it might be good to get a little bit, I mean, not to kill ourselves with a full-on research project, but maybe just ask people, you know, what would they prefer? If you could come in and talk to city council, would you prefer right at 6:30 or 8:30 with a very given time? And then we can, I mean, it also would be nice for a small group to talk. Like, I didn't get a chance to look at all those agendas. So it'd be nice for, I mean, we did it with the pilot, right? We came up with an idea, we had an hypothesis, we collected some data, but it'd be nice to like come back with like, here's a structure, this is what we're gonna do, and either approve it or just amend it. But I think these open-ended discussions, I don't know, we could talk about this for like 3 hours.
Well, I just would encourage, I mean, these are your meetings and your 8 hours a month together to decide how you wish to do it. So you will meet your obligation on taking public comment, no matter where you decide to do it.
To your point about folks letting us know, anyone who's going to give public comment tonight, please feel free to voice your opinion during your section of public comment. Anybody who doesn't want to, please send us an email and let us know what you think. I think that would be helpful. Counselor Doyle.
I would just, for the sake of, moving it forward, I'd be willing to try or propose that we try doing it around the break. If we can really be disciplined around the time. I think given like some of the other changes that you've proposed around structuring items that would receive comment from the public, it kind of makes sense to kind of put that all together in a block that could end in general business and appearances. And I think what we see right now in terms of like data is we're not getting a lot of participation at putting it in front, right? So there's kind of a data point. And maybe if we put it at 8:30, we'll see a change. So, but I'm actually frankly agnostic about it, but I think that's maybe, if I had to pick, that's what I would say.
Okay, well, let's start with you. It sounds like the break sounds good to you. Counselor Sheridan?
The break.
The break. Counselor Gill?
Sure, let's try it.
Sure, let's try it. Counselor Alfano?
I believe I suggested it.
Okay, so that's fine. Counselor Brown, you state again, but I think she's already said at the beginning is her preference.
I prefer at the beginning, but it is not something I feel super strong about. Happy to try whatever seems like it might have a possibility of working.
Counselor Cohn, do you have an
Yes.
opinion about?
Yes,
Yes for the break, or yes for the top?
yes for the break.
Okay, great, thanks. It sounds like we have general support for the break. I would like to say again, I don't think we should bake into our policy language that it will always be at that time. I think we should try it for a while and see how it goes. Also, I'd like to point out that at any time, anyone could make a motion that we hold a special meeting to cover the rest of this topic. It is 7 o'clock, which is sort of bringing us to the end of the time we had aspirationally hoped to spend on this. I don't want to cut short, but also I want to keep us moving. If we follow our aspirations, we'll still be here until like 10:30. Counselor Sheridan.
I'd just like to say one thing quickly. I talked with some counselors, and I would love to see us front load the tough agenda items when we're fresh. I hate it when agenda items that are tough are at the end and everybody's like, I'm just not thinking my best now. And we've heard that from all of us. So I'd love to tackle the stuff that's hard first. And then if we have some success, it may carry the momentum further to, have some success on the whole evening. I mean, if you start a game and you're ahead 5-0 in the first inning, boy, it picks up your whole game. So.
Great.
Love a baseball. Okay, well, we can,
We got the red card from Counselor Gill. The chair would entertain a motion to hold a special meeting to continue this conversation.
I'm willing to make that motion, but I would ask that if we do it, we have it in advance of the next. I would love to see the proposed rules of procedure come back for us at the next regularly scheduled council meeting. So I'd be happy to I will make a motion that we have a special meeting to discuss these rules of procedure. And I would hope that we could do it before the next meeting.
Is there a second?
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to say that maybe it's next Wednesday.
I'm happy to, yeah, I mean,
So there's the friendly amendment. Do we have a second before we go into discussion? Well,
I'll second for the.
okay,
purpose of
for the
having a
sake of moving
discussion.
forward, thank you, Counselor Alfano. Any discussion, Counselor Gill?
So I don't think we need a special meeting for this.
Neither do I.
This is, I think
You know what?
we can figure this out. I
Right.
think there's sample agendas. I think maybe a small group of people can just, I don't want to meet again. No,
Okay,
I don't.
well, thank you for that. Let's just take a vote. Counselor Doyle?
if I could just say, like, I'm actually, I'd be happy. I would be fine actually not having the special meeting, and I would withdraw my motion if that's possible. If we felt comfortable with the city manager just kind of proposing it based on like best practices and her previous individual conversations with us and kind of synthesizing that and coming back with ones that we can consider. If you feel that you have the direction that you need.
I feel that in the memo, I have called out what I think are the specific questions that I need you all to weigh in on and have provided a proposed sample form of the agenda that front loads more of the difficult stuff. For example, it starts with public hearings, moves on to voting action where you would take public comment, moves on to voting action where you would not take public comment, and then discussion items followed by consent and reports is how I've structured that. The only difference in what's in the memo to this discussion is moving the general businesses and appearances further down around the break time. And so you all, I think, have the information to weigh in on. You can individually email me. And so if there are specific elements of conflict amongst you all, I can propose options in a draft form.
Does that suit everybody?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great. Then
Should I withdraw my motion?
yeah.
Can
you may, I think.
I would ask to withdraw my motion.
Okay.
I'll withdraw my amendment.
All right. Motion and amendment are both withdrawn. We will respond to the manager's email. I'd ask if we can to do it, if we, I mean, we've had it for a couple days. We should be able to do it by the end of the week, right? Yes?
Yeah.
Great. All right. Please try and hit that. All right, great. With that, we're gonna move on to the next agenda item. Which is, oh, look, general business and appearances. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak? Okay, Mr. Bellini was here first, Mr. Shear was here second. Mr. Bellini, go ahead. I'd like to remind everybody, we have 5 minutes. We're gonna try and keep it tight. I'll try and let you know who's next. So as soon as the previous person is done, you can come
Hi.
on up.
I'm Dave Bellini from Montpelier. Good to see everybody. You guys are doing a good job. I asked a question 2 weeks ago. It's okay to answer my questions. I know you have it in there. This is the questions, ask them all at once. There's no section on will we answer you? But I did get my question answered because I emailed Kurt. So that's okay. I got something I'd like to see. We're down 4 police officers, or we're gonna be down 4 police officers. So that might create overtime. I'm familiar with correctional institutions. When you're short, everybody works more, but it's not a apples to apples comparison. So on the one hand, you're gonna have perhaps more overtime, but on the other hand, you're gonna have a vacancy savings. So I'd just like to see a projection. What do you guys project? Where will your vacancy savings be? Where will your overtime be? At the end of the day, will you have a little pot of money? And will that pot of money go to the general fund? Or will it remain with the police to sort of augment their activities? That's it. And as far as when you have public comment, why don't you call it public comment instead of general businesses and appearances? Motor vehicles used to have DMV enforcement on the back of their trucks. And then one day the light went on and they said, oh, we're actually police. They put police on it. Everybody knew who they were. They pull people over and they'd say, who the hell are you? This is like, okay, that's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bellini. Mr. Shear.
Richard Shear, longtime District 2 person. I want to address the elephant in the room, and that's decorum.
I'm sorry, would you just pull the microphone down towards you for the
Sure,
folks on Zoom?
okay.
Thank you.
Now it can be heard. I want to discuss decorum at the council meetings, which I think is the elephant in the room. The last 2 city council meetings, they bordered to us on farcical. I mean, you had continued interruptions, you had ad hominem personal attacks on city officials, and particularly the mayor, and we found that distasteful. Bullying behavior is not worthy of Montpelier's public forum, and we've lived here for 25 years, and the bullying of council is unprecedented. Moving forward, council should really repeatedly engage with those or refuse to engage with those whose mode of communication is to disrupt and bully. And we should hold ourselves to a standard of conduct that we would hold young children to, which means yes is yes, no is no, and that there's consequences to behavior. And ignore those. They should not be allowed to hold council captive. We do have down the street, we have a code of conduct which has been in place for hundreds of years, and that's the state legislature. The state has long had effective protocol for dealing with disruption. In fact, it's in our Constitution, Section 8, which is doors of General Assembly to be open. The doors of the house in which the General Assembly of this Commonwealth shall sit shall be open for the admission of all persons who behave decently. And they do define that. And they've long had a rule in place on disturbing a lawful assembly. By law and practice, this specifically defines the behavior that substantially impairs the meeting or causes it to terminate prematurely, both of which have happened to this council repeatedly in recent days. The State House enforces that rule the meeting or chair of law enforcement will formally command the disruptive individual to stop or leave the premises. If the individual refuses to leave after being ordered out, state police are allowed to physically remove them to protect the assembly's right to conduct business, which is defined as behavior that actively causes the meeting to terminate prematurely or require a sustained effort to overcome the disruption, which has happened in this chamber recently. This has happened repeatedly. If one violates that, the fine is 60 days in jail, fine up to 500. Shouting out multiple times over the course of meetings, repeatedly ignoring the gavel or returning to a meeting after being asked to step out establishes clear criminal intent. Court rulings show that being unduly repetitious is a primary reason a speaker's First Amendment protections drop, as it directly prevents the government from conducting its business. A single instance can be legally ignored, being unduly repetitious, and the courts will take notice and convict. Council needs to end the practice of passively being bullied. For the sake of all of us who live here, this gotta stop. 4.5 hours of meetings being repeatedly interrupted by a small handful is ridiculous. Enough is enough. I think I did it, didn't I get it?
You did. You got 1 minute under.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shear.
And you thought it impossible that I would meet the time.
I did. You've proven me wrong. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak? Mr. Whitaker, please come forward. Thank you.
Steve Whitaker, I got to note the irony that disturbing lawful assembly of homeless on a bench at the corner of State and Main is harassing the homeless is our prior speaker's MO. So I want to speak to the process. I have prepared comments, but I'm not going to have time to complete them because of what happened at this very meeting. We're talking about an agenda that was published and then superseded. We were warned that general business and appearances was going to happen at 6:35. This meeting then turned up on its head and starts it after 7 o'clock. But missing from the binder are the referenced League of Cities and Towns, Berry City, Calais, and Select Board. So we're asked to comment on items that aren't presented in the package. And that's farcical. You know, these are issues that affect the public's rights, and our charter says those have to be done by ordinance, not by this loosey-goosey policy where there's clearly an agenda to shut people down or to constrain it and not hear dissenting points of view. So I'm warning you that you need to do this by ordinance and you need to hold a public hearing, and you need to do this properly because you are affecting the rights of the citizens to be heard. But the way this should have been presented would have been in kind of a brief legal brief stat with red line versions of what's in our current and what's being proposed to be interjected, and a comparison between any suggestions from Berry City, Calais, or the League, and then maybe comments in the side margin of what are the merits or the pros and cons of each, which ones will implicate constitutional rights or legal rights, and which ones are likely to attract litigation. So this was just bungled, this idea. We're kind of desperately grasping at straws. I'll speak briefly. We've had 2 serious assaults recently. A 78-year-old man assaulted behind Bethany Church, and then in today's paper is I don't know who the victim was, but a younger man was hauled away on violation of conditions. But when I hear aged and infirm people that I relate to frequently say that they're ready to start carrying a gun, I have to say we're not even talking about this stuff. We're not talking about why we barricaded the Knoll or its constitutional freedom of assembly over there. Everything I raise as issues that y'all need to deal with, mum's the word. They never get brought up for an agenda. They never get discussed, never even recognize that you've even heard them. And that's dysfunctional. right? That there needs to be some feedback loop and response in writing or publicly to these issues, and whether you've scheduled them for an agenda or you're, gonna stick your head in the sand, at least be honest about it. So Monday's meeting, you called a special meeting and you've got an open meeting law violation for that, because you didn't warn an executive session and you went ahead and conducted one. And you had a conflicted lawyer who owns property on State Street, presumably giving advice on litigation regarding the East State Street. That's why you hired the other lawyers, because Tarrant is already, he's a property owner. He can't give you objective advice on the East State Street survey. The encampment clearances. I brought up the encampment clearances continuing, and nobody even asks a question. None of you counselors have the guts to say, is this legal that we're displacing people without an ordinance in place? We're confiscating their goods. We're, displacing a handicapped person with a broken wheelchair, and none of y'all have the courage to talk about that in public. What's wrong with you? And the third issue was the North Branch Road, which I've already mentioned. So those are things you need to be talking about, and for some mysterious reason, they don't get on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker, for your comments. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak, or is there Counselor Doyle?
Yeah, I would just say that I have a lot of confidence in our attorney, Michael Tarrant, and I believe it's factually inaccurate to say that he owns property on East State Street.
It is factually inaccurate to say that, yes. There's also a lot of presumption about what kind of happened. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, or I would call you. Kim Ward, please come forward and give us your comment. We're glad to have you.
Hello, I live across the street, and I have a question and a comment. So my question is about the sound ordinance in this town. I have sometimes politely asked Charlios to turn their music down, because a block and a half down with my windows shut and locked, I can't hear myself think, and been told by bartenders, well, there's no sound ordinance, so we can't turn it down. And I've said, well, you could, but maybe, so I'm curious where that's at, and if you've had a lot of complaints about that. I'm all for some activities. I realize I live on Main Street, but volume is an issue for me. I also have some questions about the blockade over there and what happened, just because I saw lots of people behind the Abishans building gathering in the spring, and then I saw the whatever they were, barricades, and then a sign about, I thought they had electrified the fence, but I realized what it was a sign saying it's dangerous to be here. So I was just curious about that process and how that happened. That's it.
Thank you so much. Manager Curry, do you know do you wish to respond to this now? The public comment is not public back and forth, but there were direct questions, or do you have a way to?
No, I'd
respond to
rather
her?
respond to Kim, so we don't take up the council's time on these things.
Great.
And be happy to point you in order to make a complaint. We do have a noise ordinance on books.
Great, thank you so much. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to make a comment? We're going to go to Zoom in that case. I think Mr. Hughes is first, followed by Mr. Goldman. So Mr. Hughes, please go ahead.
Good evening,
Goldman will be
Zach
next.
Hughes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council and community members. Zach Hughes, Montpelier. I'd like to just clarify, can I speak about a matter that may be on number 11 later? I don't know if you were planning to do that, but I cannot stick around till number 11. So I'd like to speak if that's possible.
Mr. Hughes, go ahead on that. We'll just ask you to not repeat on that item if you're going to speak.
I'm not going to repeat, or at least I'm going to try not to.
Go ahead.
Good evening. First of all, I did note some at our last meeting. I just want to express opinion. I did note some very serious frustration from the council and about our work. And I did at the homelessness committee, and I did go away misconstrued. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but this is volunteer work. We do a lot of, and the committees around the city do the same thing. And at one time they were paying little stipends, but the reality is this is volunteer work. And I want to clarify, I think from my side, when they said the council dropped the ball. I want to talk about, it wasn't that I expected the council to do all the work. We didn't expect that. We were dealing with recommendations that we had moved up before, and we were told no, 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 or maybe so, whatever. And it was really kind of just very frustrating. So I think when we say, the former members who were here, who said the council dropped the ball, I think that's what they meant. Because there is this idea that, y'all are the governing body, we're the committee, we send these recommendations up. This included the Parker report. I'd love to know what happened to that, because I was thinking about that. We paid good money for the Parker report, even though some of my colleagues don't like that necessarily, the report, but it was commissioned. So where did it go? There's just so many other things, like Adrian said last week, oh, there's a lot of things. Well, there's a lot of things from this committee that is still kind of saltering. So when we hear the frustration, it's very stressful. And in that spirit, we sent, I hope y'all got the memorandums that we sent up to you. I sent one last week after the meeting, after y'all claimed one of y'all or two didn't get it or something, so I sent it up. And then I sent 2 memorandums to Kelly. So trying to follow procedure. What I also see going on is another track occurring. And I think it went through the committee, but I would, utilize this committee. I've heard y'all might want to break it up, put it into housing. I would recommend against it. This is a different fish. We continue to have homelessness issues in this city. I've even heard some of you go back and say, well, we can't afford it. Well, it's the city. We've got to. And we're going to continue to do the work until we're told otherwise. So with that said, we did send 2 recommendations up to you. We hope you look at those. And the other thing I just want to mention just really quickly, I'm urging staff to talk to their council about legal options with the council, because I've heard tonight from my, community member, Richard Shear, he's quoting law, but I would love to actually see staff check with legal counsel to see what the options are, because I would hate to see council held hostage, but it does happen. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Hughes. Just a word, I think that there was frustration from multiple people, mostly because of the way communications were. But if any of your takeaway was a lack of appreciation for the work and the time that you and the other committee members are putting in, I'd just like to correct that and say that your work is very much appreciated, and we are filled with gratitude. And all of us can communicate a little bit better. But thank you very much for your work, and thank you for your comments. Mr. Goldman, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'll try to be very brief. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you all for working on this on a hot summer eve. I wanted to just support what 2 council members said. I've been coming to the meetings for, 40 years, long time. I appreciate that you may want to move general business. And I want to reinforce what Councilor Brown said. You really need to make that a defined time that people can rely on. And I would also like to support what Councilor Sheridan said about, if we may, it might really help to move the heavy agenda items to the front, so we're doing it while we're fresh and not doing it at 10 o'clock. Those are my only comments. Thank you all for working on this. It's not easy, but those are my 2 observations after coming all these years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goldman. Last call for general business and appearances. Is there anyone else in the room or on Zoom that would like to speak on any topic other than those on the agenda later? Seeing none, we are closing general business and appearances. We're going to move on to number 6, the consent agenda. At this time, any counselor may pull any item from the consent agenda for any reason. Is there any counselor who would like to pull an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none. Chair would entertain a
Move it.
go ahead, sorry.
I'll move the consent.
All right, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion or debate on the topic? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is unanimously moved. Wow, we just picked up 4 minutes and 28 seconds there. All right, we're on to number 7, the reappointment to Historic Preservation Commission. Manager Curry, who teased this up?
I can.
Oh,
Sorry,
thank
let
you.
me pull this up in our agenda. Do. So Brian Jones has applied for a position on the Historic Preservation Commission. Excuse me. And the information, as you know, we submit the responses to their questions in the cover sheet so as to redact their personal information that comes in on their application. And so this is, you know, the information in the questions that he responded to is there for you to consider.
Counselor
I
Sheriff.
think he's a slam dunk. I will move his reappointment.
I'll second.
Okay, question, point of order. Do we have to hold public comment on this? As we have said, we are going to hold public comment on each agenda item.
If he's here, I suppose he should be allowed to speak, but he probably is.
Let me check in on Zoom. I don't see so, but
Okay.
I mean, I believe in the interest of being proper, we are supposed to do that. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this particular agenda item? Seeing none, all right, we'll take the motion has been offered and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate on the topic? All right, the motion before us is to appoint, sorry, I'm reading here.
Reappoint.
Reappoint, yes, thank you. To reappoint Brian Jones to the Historic Preservation Commission. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Any abstentions? None. Thank you very much, Mr. Jones, for your previous and future service. The motion is unanimously adopted. All right, we're going to move on to item number 8, the Housing Trust Fund criteria. Manager Curry, would you like to tee up and then introduce Ms. Shuren?
I can, and I'll also just check to see if Matt Jelasik is online. I believe he is, in case some questions come up. He is the staff member that supports the Housing Committee. And so this is criteria for allocation of Housing Trust Fund funds that the Housing Committee has worked on. The initial draft of this came to you all last year that they worked on and was adopted. There was additional language that the Housing Trust Fund Committee wanted to, or the Housing Committee wanted to add in order to provide additional opportunity for grants to come in the second round. I'll thank Alyssa for her collaborative work as the chair and with other members of the committee and with staff. I think this was a great example of what we're endeavoring to do to create kind of alignment and co-collaboration between council, staff, the committee members, to bring you all forward a thoroughly vetted, discussed proposal. And I'll turn to Matt for confirmation, but I believe staff's recommendation is to support and approve it at this time after your conversation. And I'll turn it over to Alyssa for a presentation. Nice to see you.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, everyone. And a big thank you to council for including $100,000 in the FY27 budget for the Housing Trust Fund. That will bring the total up to $197,624.87. But that almost more than doubles the amount that was in it. So thank you for that work. And I also want to thank Sean Sheehan and Dan Kopic, who put together the original proposal. Neither one of them could be here tonight, so I'm standing in for them and I'll do my best on that. But they were the ones that really kind of did the heavy lifting on this to get this ready for us today. So our proposal is to add a section to the Housing Trust Fund guidelines, which were approved in June of 2024 and which were to be implemented as of July 1st of this year. So we are saying, we are requesting an additional section which essentially would allow grants and loans the same way the other sections do for just limited grants and loans if the funds are not expended through the first rounds. So essentially, with that 197,000 that will be available, the gates would be open, applications could come in with the 3 existing accessory dwelling units, the shared equity down payment assistance grants and the affordable housing project grants. If you do not get applicants for those, or if you do not exhaust the funds, you would be able to do another round of grant making or loan making to qualified applicants. And so that's our proposal essentially. And qualified applicants, we added into the criteria section 104, which is on page 11 of this text, but essentially says that if folks, I'm not going to go down the list, you could read the list, but the gist is that it would be more, the funding would be more flexible. And if it wouldn't only be for affordable housing and downstreet, it would broaden it out to folks who might need a little bit of a $10,000 grant or a zero interest loan in order to get something built or do a a more sustainable development, or there's a long list of different entities that could apply. The reason why we wanted to do this is because we didn't want to leave money on the table for housing. Right now, federal funding has been cut significantly. The affordable housing entities that typically apply for this, we understand like Downstreet won't be applying this year because they aren't able to do the projects with some of the cost increases and funding cuts. So we may be looking at no applicants for this fund this year, which is why we wanted to add this flexibility in so that we didn't leave a couple $100,000 or nearly a couple $100,000 on the table when we have such a housing demand. So that's the motivation. And we lay out here how we would want to do it, but essentially it gives a lot of flexibility and it goes beyond affordable housing here to include like energy efficiency or entities within the growth center boundary or new applicants where this would be their primary residence, or just generally adding more units onto the tax rolls here in the city. So that is the proposal. We met with the city manager and the planning department members or at least with Mike Miller and Matt Jelisek to talk through how to make this easier for implementation. And we made some changes to the language to make the administration easier. And so we feel like this is a proposal that we hope that you would support. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions from council? Councilor Fano.
Thank you for that presentation. It's a pretty thorough document.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. And I need to learn a lot about this, but I'm curious about this second round. When you say you would open a second round, would it include all 4 categories of grants and loans, or would it be confined to this new limited?
The way I understand it, would just be this new limited
Just
fund
the second round would be for that
only.
that category only.
So the first 3 get all the first crack at the bite at the apple. And then if you have extra funds or if no one applies, the second round opens up because the flexibility is significant on the second round. Yeah.
Okay, so you're not trying to catch people who were late, didn't make it into the first round. You're going to assume the first round, everybody who was going to apply was in there. And the new criteria will open that 4th category to more people. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Because there is the timing of the rounds, and I don't know if I have this directly in front of me, but yeah, it is July 1st through August 15th is the first round. And then there's a back and forth there, looking to make sure the application's complete, or if there are questions, it goes back and forth. And I think I think the city could and should do, and the housing committee can help with this, advertising during that time where we get the word out. You could put things on Front Porch Forum. We could, talk about it as an agenda item at our meeting, that kind of thing. You could amend it to include two rounds, but the whole point was give the money to the priorities you've established already as a city council, with a really strong affordability overlay on the first three, and then open it up beyond affordability as the primary screen for the next round.
Yeah, no, I'm not proposing that we change it. I just wanted clarity on that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Other questions from council?
I would just say,
Councilor Doyle, go ahead.
yeah, thank you. Just as a representative of the housing committee, I mean, the committee's doing really great work. Appreciate your leadership, and this is exactly the kind of work that we were hoping they would do, and I would fully support this.
I'd also like to point out that I think there was an earlier draft, and then there was some back and forth with staff to sort of make sure that what wound up before council was something that would really work for everyone who has to deal with it. That's really appreciated too. Thank you very much for that. Manager.
I just would check in with Matt and see if he has anything additional to offer.
Sure. Mr. Jelacic, are you, yes, here you are. Do you have anything to add before we go to public comment?
No, but just to echo other comments, the collaboration with the committee, housing committee, has been wonderful, and our continued meetings are always productive. It's been a good working experience for me.
Great.
I think this is a great opportunity to expand the range of applicants and to engage maybe some people in the community who wouldn't otherwise think about building ADUs. My aspiration is that this is an opportunity to get people who might be on the fence about building additional units, ADUs, especially in particular. This might be an opportunity to really help inspire that kind of construction.
Great. Thank you so much. At this time, if you could just remain available for us, but if there's public comment, they'll be using your seat, just to let you know. At this time, we'd like to open this topic up for public comment. Is there anyone, we'll start in the room. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this topic? Seeing none, I'm going to go to Zoom. Mr. Kelman.
Peter Kelman, Montpelier. This sounds like a great idea. It does raise, I want two clarifying questions related to this. Maybe this changed, but it used to be that if money was left over, if in the housing trust fund, it was still there. It could be carry over to the following years. So you're not leaving money on the table. That argument I don't think is there. The money will be there the following year, at least that's the way it was. And related to that, a lot of the trust fund money in the years past went to a first-time home buyers program, and supposedly the conditions were when they sold those houses, these were loans, forgiven, or they were supposed to pay them back. I don't know that that actually ever happened, but I remember talking about the idea of having a revolving fund, so that if these are not just outright grants but loans, that something is done about getting that money back into the fund. So this is, I guess, two clarifying questions consistent with the proposal here, although I think it's a slight misspeaking to say that money would be left on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelman. To clarify, Ms. Prim, we're doing 2 minutes, I believe, for comment. Thank you. And public comment is not for public back and forth, but it does look like Mr. Jelacic does have maybe a response to some of those direct questions. Mr. Jelacic, would you like to speak?
Yeah, just to confirm, the money does not disappear. That's why there's $97,000 still left that will be added to the $100,000 the council approved for this next fiscal year. And then the second question, the loans for first-time home buyers, for example, do get repaid, but they get repaid later than it's not enough. We loan more than comes in. It's not a balanced sheet every time. So the money does come back unless it's a grant. If it's a first-time home buyer's loan, it's one of the banes of my daily life.
Thank you, Mr. Lasik. Anyone else in Zoom or in the room that would like to speak on this topic from the public? Seeing no one, we're going to come back to any other clarifying questions from council before we entertain a motion. Do you have anything else to add, Ms. Shuren?
I just wanted to say that it's 0 interest loans up to $50,000 and grants up to $10,000. The council gets to decide both of those, either or. So, Mr. Kelman brought up that it was loans only, and I wanted to just point out that it was loans and grants that are part of the fund.
Okay, thank you for that. Manager Curry.
Yes, and I would just like to offer that, in the timelines for these criteria, which you are adopting as multi-year, this is the criteria you'll visit every year, calling out the dates of July 1st to August 15th. We are obviously lagging that to roll this out. And I think as a product of a major transition that has happened over the last year, staff will work on this diligently, and in this first year open, the application period for a 45-day period, which aligns with the expectations. But as you know, we haven't stood this up for July 1st launch yet. And so more to come. Staff will work diligently on that. You'll hear our opportunities for advertising that program. And I know the Housing Committee knows that. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everyone. So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the Housing Trust Fund policies and procedures document as presented.
So moved.
Okay, and I think
I will move to approve the Housing Trust Fund policies and procedures document as presented.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Second from Councilor Gill. Is there any discussion or debate from council on this topic? I'm not seeing any. The motion before us is to approve the Housing Trust Fund policies and procedures document as presented. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed. Any abstentions? None. Unanimously passes. Ms. Shuren, thank you very much, and thank you for everyone on the House.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to item number 9, which is the municipal tax rate. Would you?
Make sure I really want something.
Is it best for me for you to tee up the conversation, or should I just ask her to come?
This is fine. This is Heather Graves, who's our finance director. And every year you all approve the final tax rate when the grand list assessment has been finalized, and she can talk in more detail or answer questions, but I'll turn it over to Heather. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for
Am I
coming.
not close enough? Is that good?
That's good.
So coming to you all tonight to get the FY27 tax rate set. Every year council sets a tax rate based on the voter approved budget. For FY27, the voter approved amount to be raised by taxes was $13,852,065. That figure is then divided by our final grand list, which was just finalized yesterday, thus the updated sheet for you. The final grand list number is $13,251,505 for FY27. Both of those numbers are highlighted in pink on the sheet that I handed out before the meeting started. I know there's a lot of numbers and stuff there. It's a little easier on the eyes to be able to pinpoint them. So for FY27, the math of our voter approved amount to be raised by taxes divided by our final grand list comes out to a tax rate of $1.0522. This is slightly lower than the estimated amount during the budget development back in January. by 3.12 cents. That positive difference is due to a small increase in the grand list this year. The tax rate includes the city's general fund budget, separate ballot items, and the Washington County tax. I'll give you just a second to check that out. So also this evening, we're wanting to set the water and sewer benefit charge rate at 2 cents and the sewer separation charge at 7 cents. Those both remain unchanged from prior year. My recommended action is to approve the FY27 municipal tax rate at $1.0522, the water sewer benefit charge rate at 2 cents, and the sewer separation charge rate at 7 cents.
Thank you. Are there clarifying questions from Ms. Graves from council? Not seeing any. Is there any public comment on this topic? Seeing none, the chair would entertain I Councilor Sheridan.
Before I make the motion, I would just like to say congratulations.
Thank
I like seeing us moving internal people up when
Thank
they
you.
are qualified, so. I'm glad that you are moved up.
Thank you. It's an honor. I'm happy to be here.
And I will move the tax rate.
Thank you.
Okay.
A second.
Okay, so as I understand it, the motion before us is to approve the fiscal tax year 2027 municipal tax rate of $1.0522 and the water sewer benefit charge of 2 cents and the sewer separation charge of 7 cents. Is there any discussion or debate on this topic? In that case, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? It is approved unanimously. Ms. Graves, thank you very much for a job well done.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I would just like to point out that we're 45 minutes ahead of schedule and
Look.
what's that? No, we're not going to gloat. What we're going to do instead is we have 45 minutes set aside for the next piece. Does it require a vote for us to move that up ahead of the break, or should we just take a break now?
Let's listen to it.
Okay, I hear that as a motion to move the next item, number 10, the city manager's fresh eyes report, to now and take a break afterwards. Because we know she's gonna keep it right to 45 minutes. It's gonna be great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor of moving item number 10 up to now, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it is unanimous. Manager Curry, you have the floor.
Let me pull up my slide deck, please.
Light off.
Folks in the room, do you need the light off or can you see okay? Well, let's leave it on, and if someone needs it off, please just raise your hand and we'll know what that means. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to present to the council and the community what I'm calling my Fresh Eyes report. You all brought me on at the middle of February of this year to lead the city as its next city manager after a 30-year manager had served and what was a bit of a fractious transition. And so ordinarily, I would have liked to have done this within the first 90 days, but a lot happened in that time, and here we are. And so a Fresh Eyes report is an opportunity for a new employee, someone in new leadership, to provide candid feedback to the employer, to the community, and the council in this case. My reflections on what is happening in the city, on the structure of the organization, on cultural principles that I experience daily internally, to assess the challenges in this position, to see where alignment exists with the expectations that I came in with or that were communicated to me by you all, and how that has shaken out on the ground, and identify some realistic opportunities for leadership and responding to this transformation moving forward, as well as to compare to my own past professional experiences and look at a bit of where I'm coming from and how that is shaping my lens for leadership in the city moving forward. And so I'll try to cover some themes that have emerged with the organization's internal operations, external expectations of the city and of me, and leadership priorities, gaps that I see, whether I think the organization's actions are aligning well with its mission, and then call out some things that have surprised me during this time. The Fresh Eyes report is a bit different than what I might endeavor to do in future years as a state of the city, which would actually look more at strategic plans and reporting out to the community on what council's goals are, what our organizational goals are, on conditions affecting the city, such as demographics and economic trends. I'll hold that and reserve that type of presentation for what I might call a future state of the city. And so that's why I'm separating this out and calling it a Fresh Eyes report. And some of the themes that I'll discuss are as follows: what I'm calling quieting the transition in this leadership transition, building trust and morale, beyond recovery, partners in service, leveraging the tools that we have, and modernizing the organization. And so for quieting the transition, as I mentioned, it's a big shift for a new leader to come in and take over after a former leader has been there for decades. And, that caused shift and change and rupture internally, some externally with the community, and reorienting expectations that the council wants to set for the city government. And, there were projects that were delayed because of that, because there were leadership shifts, because folks had to step into new positions as voids were created, because work priorities had to be reevaluated and in some cases triaged. And so I'm looking at quieting the transition in terms of completing projects that have been delayed over the last year. Some of those include, finalizing our union negotiation with our fire department. They've been out of contract since last July 1st. And so finalizing that, getting that on track. Stalled collection of delinquent taxes and utility payments. We have had payments that are in arrears for quite a long time, where they had been collected regularly as ordinary course of business in the past. The leadership transitions created voids, and those were just set aside. And so I see that as a significant priority to get caught up on. We have unfinished memorandums of understanding that just were simply not completed, that we are operating kind of under informal understandings with partners who thankfully we have great relationships with, but would benefit everyone to resolve in more formal manners. That includes partners like Good Samaritan, Montpelier Alive, Downstreet, and others. And then also getting kind of back on track with supporting staff and looking at performance plan execution. This was not done regularly over the course of many years, from what I can tell, and has not been done recently. And so being able to develop that leadership to support staff, articulate goals together, how those align with the city plan and the council strategic goals, and then regularly provide feedback is something that I see as important to do. I would also note that when you have major leadership shifts like this, it's not out of the ordinary for organizations to see further churn. And, folks, we've seen other department heads in the city have decided to depart for a variety of reasons, whether that is, they didn't like how things were going in the past. They don't like how new leadership is going. They're reevaluating their opportunities elsewhere in other positions and what they want to do for their careers. It's not unexpected that there will be additional continued turnover in departments as a result of this type of transition. And so with that, we are also building staff capacity. You know, we still have a number of vacancies, which I am working on filling in my office and in other departments, which we absolutely need to build capacity. Our capacity is really limited right now. And, you know, honestly, we're working on what are the core essentials for government and to keep government running and functioning in Montpelier. And so, you know, building that staff capacity to have a strong runway ahead is a critical item for quieting the transition. Building trust and morale. So, you know, coming into new leadership with your new city manager, you know, under contentious conditions means that I have to build trust across multiple dimensions in order to be regarded and supported as a legitimate leader. And these include, you know, within and among city council, with me and city council members, between staff and city council, among department heads throughout the organization, laterally among my colleagues in the community and across the breadth of the community. And I would say, you know, a significant strength of the staff is that they have strong internal trust with one another. And I think that this has been born out of a series of crises, which have included, you know, COVID pandemic, the flood, this leadership transition. They rely heavily on each other. They support each other. People work cross-functionally across departments in really strong ways. It creates a family dynamic where people support each other. I also think it's something to pay attention to because, you know, when you have that sort of sense of close-knitness internally, it can create notions of us versus them. And that is something that, you know, I think in a professional environment and what my vision of a professionally run city is, we want to support that and foster that when it's healthy and also make sure that, you know, this is a profession, this is a job, and we're all committed to the goals of the organization. We're all moving forward the goals of the mission and vision of the organization first and foremost for that. And I think as, you know, we're able to build more capacity, as we're able to let staff, you know, focus and thrive in their positions, take their time off as they need, those kind of things will be able to achieve that in a stronger way. And then also, you know, I see that the need to build trust between staff and the council. You know, this leadership transition obviously was difficult for staff. It caused concerns from some staff about, you know, am I next? Do I have a target on my back is something that had been referred to me. I think the budget cuts of the last year have left people feeling unreliable and insecure in their positions at times. And so being able to continue to articulate, you know, how staff is supported, how council sees their work, creating opportunities for staff and council to work together in ways that aren't just around this table, right? Through tours of facilities, through co-collaborative efforts around policies and priorities that individual members have and staff can support moving forward, I think are some things that we're endeavoring to do to strengthen that. And with that, I think build strength in the trust with the community and the city government as a whole. And this has looked like things like, you know, groundbreakings, supporting staff successes, having commendations when people have done really exceptional things that we bring to you and that you all have been able to celebrate and acknowledge as well. Also, what I'm looking at is, you know, staff is carrying a lot of overtime. They are carrying a lot of unused vacation time. I think, again, these are things that have built up over years of high demands and high response to some crisis situations. That is, you know, it's not great for the organization for a number of reasons, right? That's a liability that we financially carry should people move on. It also doesn't create great work-life balance. And so one of the things that I'm looking at in my leadership role is, you know, how do we generate that work-life balance? How do we let people take their time off, which also limits sort of the liability that runs to the city as well. You know, how do we support them in professional development? Because I think in the past that has been seen as a bit of extraneous, where really I think these are the things that can cause our staff to become, you know, great and exceptional in their fields that will cause the city of Montpelier to be an employer of first choice in the state of Vermont, which is what I hope to lead this organization to become as well, and will foster in the investments in staff to be able to take advantage of such professional development. And again, I think as our trust builds, as trust with staff builds, it will engender greater trust in the community and in the services that we're providing as well. Beyond recovery, I have come in under the, I think, passing cloud of what was a history of some crises, especially with the recent flood and still recovery from the flood. But what I have observed and have felt is really a community that is on the threshold of a new chapter of progress and vitality. There's a lot of wonderful things that are happening in the city of Montpelier, and that a lot of wonderful projects that our city is endeavoring to support. There's a great energy with new businesses filling all their storefronts. There's a great energy around the Country Club Road project and the city's commitment to building more housing and being supportive to housing developers. There's a great energy around how do we look at expanding the pillars of our economy to being stronger than a reliance on state government. And so I find that there's a real palpable excitement for being a resident of the city of Montpelier, for people who have remained on staff and continue to be dedicated to those visions, a optimism about what's to come. We have some long-term projects that we need to dedicate, I think, additional attention to once we are fully capacitated with staff, including district heat and how to make that program more solvent, and something that has been on the books for a long time without resolution, and I think we can move forward on. Additionally, along those lines, parking. I look at the city's parking program as something that requires a thorough look. It has not been one of those projects that have elevated to an urgently requiring attention, but it is very important, and I've been surprised at how many different ways the parking conversation touches the city. Across departments, from constituents, from partners that we work with. It's sort of a great example of what can we do to modernize. I'll talk a little bit about my strategies that I'm looking towards for that later, but parking. I look forward to wrapping our hands around that. Let's see, I'm also looking at how do we strengthen organizational practices? How do we create more opportunities for you all to participate in trainings should you wish? Looking forward to a strategic planning update retreat with you all, providing some more opportunities for re-education and clarity around the policies and procedures that you have on the books, which sometimes I think just maybe come up in passing conversations or in a passing line on a memo, but I think would actually, to spend time with you all around them, would be able to provide you with greater structural clarity on some of the long-term goals. One of those I'm thinking of is, for example, our fund balance policy, generating really important conversations around things like that we are carrying these policies and we're not upholding them to the greatest degree that we could. And if we were to, would I think strengthen the city in the long term as well. And so looking at some of our organizational practices like that, in the future, in the coming year or so. Additionally, I want to pay more attention to our performance plan and recognition program for city staff. As I mentioned, there is not a consistent onboarding or everboarding program and evaluation of staff and compensation or merit reward or acknowledgement of staff's performance that I think we in a professional organization should really institute. Partnership and service. Of course, the city is a service organization, right? The bulk of our budget is staff and people to respond and provide services to the community. I think we have an opportunity to strengthen our culture around how we are partners in service with the community. And some of the things I've been thinking about along these lines are, reorganizing some positions. So, for example, you all have authorized an administrative assistant in my office. I don't need an administrative assistant in the classic sense regarding, someone to make copies, create files, get signatures. I don't need that. What I think would best serve the city is a constituent services role that would be housed in my office, but be able to provide direct connections, quick feedback to outreach from constituents in a centralized way that would both help take some of those duties off of individual departments and also be more efficient and effective in how we are connecting with our constituents throughout the city. Additionally, I'm looking at an internal shift from what we have as a facilities and sustainability coordinator to more of an assets coordinator, because we have additional needs with staff shortages, with some staff positions being cut. How do we realign some of these positions? Not to get rid of our sustainability objectives. Those should be showing up in all of the work that staff is doing. We should be looking at that across the organization in terms of aligning with the city plan and the strategic goals of council. But, that's one of the shifts I'm looking at. And then additionally, I'm contemplating the creation of something like a business ombudsman that could help members in the community who are looking to get projects done, who are looking to start new businesses or create new housing, to help them shepherd through those tasks that they would need with touch points in the city as well. And, I think we are in a bit of a condition of scarcity, I think, from the mentality of that, from a staff point of view. We're trying to deliver our core services, but I know that we can deliver those in a way where we are partners with the community and acting as servant leaders in the strongest ways that we can do possible. Now, along with this, one of the things that I have said sort of from the very start is, are we doing the right things well? This is part of what I am looking at when I'm evaluating my leadership in the city. What are we also saying no to? It's so that we may say yes to the right things, so that we may move forward the projects that are going to most align with the critical goals that council has. And I've observed that in the past, that's a shift that, when there's opportunities, the city has wanted to embrace them. But when we look at staff capacity, when we look at capacity to accept grants and manage grants and implement projects all the way through to the end, sometimes that requires saying, not right now, or maybe under different conditions we can take things on. And that allows us to really focus on the things that we can do well and are poised to do well. Mission alignment. So, one of the things that I would like to endeavor to do is better align the staff at all levels with what the city plan and the strategic plan objectives are. My goal is that there is some familiarity at every level of the city on what council is hoping to do, what we are working on at these meetings, what the city plan says for the next 7 years, and be able to articulate that. So that at any point when someone's working for the city of Montpelier, they are grounded in those goals. They can talk with members of the public on the street about what those goals are, and they can see their connection to that vision at any time. I look at that as also part of contributing to the notion of a culture of service that I'm hoping to strengthen. Budget austerity. So, this has not translated to reduced expectations, which I know you all know and hear about on the regular. I do think that we have extended our opportunities to do more with less to about as great extent possible. And now we're in a position to look at how do we do less with less. And that has shown up in, a variety of ways that you all have had touch points with, for example, some of the rec fields that haven't been mowed quickly this year, or the tower replacement at the pool. The Parkapalooza event that used to happen at the parks has had to be held back. We have opportunities at the fire department where we could be responding to more calls that would be billable for, response with ambulance, which those opportunities are left on the table by staffing. Obviously, the police department, the amount of staffing that they're approved for is less than ideal for a size of our city and a capital city. You all received a staffing report that looked at the need for 22 officers in a town of our size, with additional expectations around special events, with the high amount of commuters and workforce that come into the city every day. I would argue that ours should be even higher than that in order to provide the exceptional service that this community would like to see from our police department. We've had to have some office closures. My office, I would love to just have the door open all the time. I had the door open on the 3rd of July when City Hall, was closed for business, but open for the public, and had great conversations with people who came in to use the facilities. And as we get more stabilized, would like to be able to do that. Finance has had to have restricted hours at time. The clerk's office has had to have restricted hours at time. We are flexing as best as we can with limited staffing while continuing to provide our core services. Additionally, our strategic plan, I hope to have a check-in with you all. Your strategic plan that you developed last year really had multi-year goals built into it. And so I wouldn't recommend a full revisitation of those because you're making progress on all fronts with infrastructure, housing, and economic development. But I do think it merits a check-in every year. And one thing I might propose is to add public safety as an important component for your strategic plan. We are doing a lot of work around homelessness. We are paying a lot of attention around the police department right now that is, simply not being addressed or identified in the strategic plan. And so I think recognizing those would better align what is happening on the ground with what is being asked of us by council. Leveraging our tools. So, we have a lot of great tools that I think we could be using to better effect. And so instead of spending more money to adopt new things or to bring in new consultants or to buy a new service, I think we can leverage our existing tools more effectively. And I will say, this is part of modernizing the organization. I don't think that any kind of organizational opposition will happen internally. I think that, staff has demonstrated interest, willingness, excitement around streamlining our work, around using the technologies we have, about being better trained on the things already at our disposal to do things like improve our customer payment options. So folks can come in and pay in the manner that they would like for any number of services that they need to pay for in the city, whether it's a popsicle at the pool or whether it's your property tax at the clerk's office. Communication tools, we have a great tool, Zen City, that has been used that I think we can leverage to get greater public input in an expanded fashion that would reach out to folks who don't participate in these types of meetings, but would willingly engage with a tool like that. Civic Plus is our website. We all know that our website needs help. And, Civic Plus does have a lot of tools that we could leverage to provide greater clarity and transparency for the public and be a more useful tool for staff and council alike. Ticketing tools for, our asset work, and order tracking, electronic signature processing. I probably said 5,000 times since my first day of why are we doing all of this on paper? And so transitioning some of those to modernize as well. And then this also adds into kind of modernizing the organization, formalizing handshake deals. I think when you have had people who've been around for many decades and who carry all of the history in their head, handshake deals have come about. And this isn't unusual to Montpelier. I mean, this is many places in the country. But I do think as we are bringing new people in, as population churns, as new leadership is in, we should formalize some of these handshake deals so that it's clear into the future. What is the city agreeing to with partners? What are partners agreeing to with the city? And then implementing some 21st century governance processes. We have some cleaning of house to do regarding things like cash handling, regarding IT policies, and user training, so we're not putting the organization at risk, records retention. I think I spend a lot of time and God bless John Odom for all of his help to me where I'm like, can you please help me find this? I can find when the conversation happened, you know, what the draft was, but I can't find the thing. Can somebody help me please find the thing? And so that, you know, is sort of basic access for transparency and accountability for us and for the public being able to access that. And then again, onboarding and everboarding. So creating a more formalized onboarding system for our new employees as they're coming in so we can support them in getting established in the organization and being supported in the organization and receiving the training that would be beneficial to aligning their mission and vision of their role with the broader organization. And, you know, growing everyone's capacities and skills as professionals into the future is what I look at as everboarding. You know, rate studies on customer-facing services. So I know we've talked a bit about revisiting water and sewer study rates. I think there's opportunities to look at parking. I think there's opportunities to look at some of our programming that we do in the rec and the senior center and see how whether those are modernized or not. And then a compensation study, you know, in order for us to, I think, be be an employer of first choice in the state of Vermont, we need to understand where we fall in comparison to, other organizations. You know, it's not a surprise, there's often a revolving door between the city and the state relative to positions and where people get paid more or how we lose people to other municipalities. And I think we need to do a compensation study to look at how the staff in our personnel plans, full compensation package is being able to attract and retain a quality talent as well. What I call sort of my 4 nightmares, the 4 things that keep me up at night: mass shooting, cybersecurity attack, flood, and embezzlement. These are big deals, you know, and obviously no one city can address all of these, but I do think we can mitigate risk along all of these lines. Obviously, we need to really dedicate focus in the coming months on strengthening our police department. They are highly trained at full staffing levels. They can do more training around mass shooting events and how to respond to things like that. Cybersecurity attacks, this goes to sort of the absence of our internal IT policies. Having our Zoom account linked to an employee that no longer works for the city whose email is still active, like, no, these are not things that should exist in a 21st century government. Flood, we're making progress towards projects and plans to minimize our risk of flood. I think our emergency preparedness is a highlight. I'm really looking forward to some of the tabletop exercises that we are planning with Vermont Emergency Management, with aligning the staff's understanding of what their capacities in emergency response would be in a ways to practice. Embezzlement, again, I think that, we do regularly audits, but we have a lot of opportunity to strengthen up our fiscal controls and ensure that, we're mitigating as much risk as possible. And these are not to call out that I think any one of these things are going to happen in any one day, but I do think there's real opportunity for the city to improve along our risk mitigation. 4 surprises. So Montpelier is a city that punches above its weight. For a city of 8,000, for a government that, manages a city of 8,000, it has a lot going on. It has got a lot of departments, I think, comparatively to other cities of 8,000. The fact we're running our own water and wastewater and stormwater and district heat and things like that is ambitious for cities of this size. The fact that we have as many events as we do, that we have such a vibrant downtown community. There's definitely a lot going on here that is run by, a staff of about 110, give or take. A little geography with big energy, it's pretty dense here. Montpelier is not a spread out city. It's compact and, that density, I think, creates big energy. And a lot of attention in anything that's happening in the city at any one time is readily felt quickly. And so that's something that I've observed. The volunteerism crossing all sectors, there is a strong commitment to community, which I love. And has been a real pleasure to sort of observe and be part of and help facilitate where, there are gaps, volunteers are willing to step in. There are some incredible strengths to that. I think there's also, there also can be some weaknesses to that at times if we are, having roles of city service or service that the city should be providing divested to volunteers, there is, I think, some risk with that and being able to ensure, are we able to deliver these services? Are we able to deliver them at the levels that the city and the constituents can really expect? But, in sum, it's a real gift. And I think it's a really wonderful thing about Montpelier. And then Vermonters are hoarders of maple syrup. And this is something I've just have been delightfully surprised to find out how many different ways you can enjoy maple syrup in the state of Vermont. Because I think once you cross the border, that about halves. And then once you get out of New England, that halves even further. So many of the things I've enjoyed here, I could not get in Colorado. Next steps for the short term, creating capacity, getting our vacant positions filled, prioritizing public safety because of, without public safety or the perception of public safety, it's hard for a community to focus on any of the other goals that it wishes to deliver on. Addressing some of the stalled critical projects that I mentioned and deploying simple tool expansion. How can we leverage what we are already using for better effect for services we deliver? And then in the medium term, reorganizing some positions, strengthening our internal alignment, facilitating the check-in with you all on the council's strategic plan, and pursuing opportunities to strengthen council trainings and connection to staff. So we're all building trust together, aligning along the same goals, and meeting your expectations. And then in the long term, developing and implementing 21st century government policies, designing and implementing what I call our vitality initiatives. This is the all around adventure campaign, expanding our economic development initiative, providing further detail around the housing vision so we can advance that, I think, really bold and exciting goal, strengthening our emergency preparedness, and then fostering discipline around the plans and policies that we have on the books. And that is that. And I would be happy to take any questions or provide clarification for anything anyone has. Oh, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. I really am enjoying making this my home. And it's been wonderful to participate in some of the events that have happened across the city, to get to know you all, to really stand up to, I think, frankly, some challenging leadership opportunities. None of it is, nothing in any one, instance is insurmountable. I do think the volume at times feels overwhelming. But when we parse it down to what's really critical, sometimes having to say no to certain things. My apologies to anyone awaiting an email reply from me that has not gotten one yet. But otherwise, I appreciate being given the opportunity to demonstrate this leadership for this board, for the city organization, and in the community.
Manager Curry, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the leadership and your personal opinion. You're doing a hell of a job.
Thank you.
We will take questions from council. I see Councilor Cohn has her hand up.
Thank you, Kelly. I really appreciate your hard work. I know everything is happening at the same time. So you and city staff are doing great job. I just want to say my appreciation again. One addition, maybe you've already thought about this. Is there any plan to look at outside of the organization? Because Montpelier's population is going down. It might affect our tax rate. So it will be great when we talk about strategic planning or doing any improvement internally, just connect it with the outside things might happen because of the population decrease. So almost like a future foresight analysis, just connect external external, oh my God, impacts, then we can really plan and improve our city structure based on what the things are waiting for us externally. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I think if I hear you correctly. Right?
Is your microphone muted?
No, sorry. I think if I'm understanding correctly, Pillin, something along the lines of forecasting for the community to help identify, what are the outside conditions that it could affect city government and city goals moving into the future. So if I understood that correctly, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct, because we talk about budget and like other things, but most of our budget is coming from taxes. And if our population is going down, it will affect our tax rate in next 3 years or 5 years. So I think it is important to look at, and there are nonprofit organizations already doing that work, like Vermont's Future Project and everything, and they're in Barrie, so we can always talk to them. But I think it is very important to have in our plans to create that kind of analysis.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? Thank you, Councilor Cohen. Councilor Doyle.
I would just ask, like, first of all, I'm just really impressed, and I do in my professional life have the opportunity to work with other towns and cities, and I just feel really lucky that we were able to find you and that you chose to make Montpelier your home. So I'm just really impressed with your leadership, and I want to know what we can do to most effectively support you. I mean, I don't feel like there's probably a laundry list, and but I just want to make sure that and I think you've been doing a good job of this, but like, make sure to encourage you to tell us what you need from us to provide the kind of direction that you need to be successful.
Thanks, Councilor Doyle. I think the analogy that I return to for myself when I talk about this openly sometimes to people is, it's like working on an old house, right? And we're very much looking forward to the point in time where we can get to, putting on the nice shutters or re-siding it with, the cement fiberboard or other energy efficient type of materials. But right now I'm like focused on the foundation, and I'm focused on shoring up the foundation so that we can build all of the rest of the development on top of that. Because, I don't want to underplay it, but the capacity limitations in the city are real, and we're trying to do our best at delivering core services while also making incremental advancement towards the bigger goals for the city and vision for the city as well. And so, I think just some recognition that the state we are in now is not going to be the state that we're in 6 months. Like, we will have built more capacity, right? We have quieted the transition, like what I say, and we will be able to deliver more and look more strategically and provide more forward-facing leadership than I think what is just sort of reactive to critical conditions right now. Thanks.
Great. Anyone else? Councilor Alfano.
Well, I'd just like to congratulate the council on what a great job we did.
All right.
Pitching Kelly Curry. I mean, I too am just completely happy with the way things are going and how you're approaching it all. I'm really happy you didn't take the first train out of town, although I think there is only one, so it wouldn't have been easy. But I mean, the future is bright, I think, and that's partly because of what you're doing. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Councilor Brown, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I want to echo what other people have said. This was, I knew you had been looking at things really carefully and with fresh eyes, and it's really great to hear the details of what you've seen. And a lot of what you said kind of echoes some of the things that we have been hearing in the past that we kind of already knew, but you have been able to kind of put an additional clarity to a lot of things, which I really, really appreciate. And I think when it comes time for our budget development next year, I'm looking forward to those conversations where we can really get into the priorities that have to do with supporting the people who are actually delivering the services here in the city and making sure that they have what they need to be successful and to give the services that people in Montpelier expect. And also, I just want to echo what Ben said. Let us know what you need from us. We are here for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We're just at about 8:30, but we are supposed to take public comment on every agenda item. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak on this agenda item? Ms. Smith? Yes, please come forward and speak into the microphone. Thank you.
That was a lot of work. I just wanted to mention that I heard you say something about paper versus, I guess, computer. And then you also mentioned something about potential cyber attacks. And I just wanted to comment that in one of the last places I worked, when we made the shift from paper to the computer, we opted, not like anybody else, to maintain our paper logs in case of cyber attacks. And we got one. And we were the only people who had our paper going, and we were fine because we had paper. So just let me know.
All right, thank you for that. Anyone else in the room that would like to make comment on this topic? Anyone on Zoom? All right, seeing none. We are miraculously at 8:31. We are in recess for, let's call it 15 minutes, 14 minutes. We'll be back at 8:45. What's the date? On July 8th, 2026, this meeting of the Montpelier City Council is called back to order from our break. Next on our agenda is number 11, the homelessness update. I'm going to turn it over to you, Manager Curry, to tee this up for us, please.
Well, okay. All right, thank you, everyone. So as requested, we have requested ongoing updates on the actionable plan on homelessness that we identified at the April 29th special meeting and a number of items from that. Tonight, I would like to focus on two items in particular. One related to the feasibility of the City Hall shelter space for extended use, and then another, the assessment of a designated overnight camping locations. I also just want to briefly comment on Zach Hughes' comments earlier today and acknowledge information that he forwarded for your consideration that I plan to report out on tonight. So I'll start with that. So the Housing Committee has provided a recommendation that council update the language of the encampment policy so as to not displace individuals at camps on weekends or during inclement weather. I think that's fine. We don't generally do that over the weekends. Anytime that there is a notice sort of served by staff, it's coming out of my office, and we're doing it Monday through Friday. And we don't follow up until the next following week. And we have had instances, particularly in May, where we had a number of weeks that had very strong downpours, that we delayed connecting with folks. We understood that street outreach needed additional time to connect with folks as well. So I think that that is an amenable update to the encampment policy. We had some other language updates for consideration about disposal of abandoned belongings. I've not sensed any urgency to bring those forward, but we can draft an update to the encampment policy for review in coming weeks. And then related to the Parker Advisors report that Zach had mentioned, I just want to point out that the recommendations that were in that report were folded into the opportunities for our actionable plan on April 29th, the memo that I produced then with the numerous items that council could consider along the 4 dimensions of action those were included in that. And so that is how, we're continuing to revisit the recommendations that had been made in that report from many years ago. And then finally, I will report out on some input we have received about the draft MOU for the designated overnight camping locations. But first, what I'll talk about is we continue to assess the feasibility of the City Hall basement space as potential emergency overnight shelter, which was what it was used for last year. Now, when we came back at the last meeting, we reported that, based on the full build out of the design of downstairs at the request of the providers, that the cost we estimated for that was $120,000. We went back and had further discussions, what could we do to shrink the scope and yet address some of the concerns. And so we think it's feasible for us to build out an emergency egress door that would give that second egress that has been requested from the space that was used for the shelter into the hallway and then out to the outside doors and to the elevator. It would require us to frame out some walls and drywall the office space that our, one of our facility staff is using, but we could do that for, less than $5,000. We think that would be a feasible upgrade in order to provide that secondary egress as requested by the providers. So I wanted to bring that back for your consideration. I know they are looking at planning for winter sheltering as well, but we also had further discussions with the state fire warden, who initially gave the approval to use that space, and he is amenable to approving that space for that use again this winter. So I feel like those are two pretty significant hurdles and updates to consider the feasibility of that space, and we can continue talking to, either the emergency cold weather shelter people or Capstone, who are also looking for sheltering space this winter, on whether they would like to use that. And so I'll just stop and see if there's any questions about that update.
But just recap the main points. Recap the main points as I heard them, which was that we could add an emergency egress, which was one of the big things, for less than $5,000, and that the fire marshal was amenable to approving that space for that use again this winter. Does that also mean between now and the winter, or are we speaking specifically about winter warming? I mean, winter sheltering only.
We were looking at winter sheltering because it's hot and not comfortable for summer use. And so that would require additional investment if we wanted to use that for a space. And I'm not sure if they want to use that space right now, to be honest. And I will note Matt Jalisik is here still. Thank you, Matt. And he can provide additional comment on conversations with the providers, because Matt is really acting as our partner in staying connected with the providers across the scope of the services.
Right, Matt, anything to add at this point, or just whenever you're ready?
No, what Kelly said is accurate. I think when we talked about the fire marshal's agreement, we have to remember that that was for the cold weather shelter, overflow emergency cold weather shelter. So the use has to be the same. So we might be able to talk to the fire marshal again to change the use to include cooling shelter, though it's not cool, we can, or to extend the use. But the thing that was approved is very specific.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Sheridan.
I want to talk about the temperature that precipitates the use. Are we going to use the same temperature as last year? I think it was what, 10 degrees? Which is, I would like to see it 20 at least, if we could get the people to do it. I think 20, and having lived here in Vermont all my life, it really gets cold from 20 down, not 10 down. And so 20 up sometimes feels like it's 50 out when you're in the dead of winter, but 20 down is cold, especially when you have a cold wind. So I'd like to see the temperature bumped up.
Mr. Jelasik?
I think that's going to depend on the volunteer capacity. I'm meeting with Rick DeAngelis on Monday, and we'll discuss this as well, see if there's opportunity to increase it, because Rick helps coordinate the state's response.
Great. So it sounds like staff
Yep.
has that in mind
Yep.
as they're speaking to them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about this before we move to next? Go ahead, Ms. Curry.
Okay. So the next major item was at the request of councils at the last meeting, was to prepare a draft MOU that would, be a proposal to enter into agreement with a service provider if the city wished to designate an outdoor designated encampment. And so I took that direction and built out, the MOU, which is included in your packet, that sets forth proposed expectations for the city and for any provider who may wish to want to manage the camp on what we would expect from each other, what the city would deliver, what the provider would agree to. I'm happy to walk through that. I will say I might look to Matt again to weigh in on this, but we have been told this week that Beth Ann Meyer and the group that originally brought this proposal for consideration are no longer interested in considering it. So we happy to walk through these, happy to see if you all have things that you want added or pulled out. We can continue to have this as a resource. We can turn it into an RFP and see if another provider would be interested in doing this. But that's my understanding of that conversation. And then, Capstone has said, our expertise is not in outdoor sheltering, it's in indoor sheltering. But again, we can put this out there to see if there are any service providers in the community that would wish to organize themselves or a partnership to be able to respond to the criteria that you would put forward. And so this would be an opportunity to evaluate that criteria and see if there's anything you'd like to add or remove.
Councilor Sheridan.
Did they give a reason why? Because they were the ones that approached us on that.
Sure. The reason, as I understand it, is they are pivoting their focus to developing the cold weather shelter. I think because the church is not planning to host the cold weather shelter again this year, that is of more, the urgency around life safety with cold weather is more pressing than warmer months. Matt, again, I'll look to you because I'm paraphrasing conversations that Matt and I have had in email.
Yeah, I had one other observation. I thought 5 tents and 10 people was a little short. I mean, I thought maybe we could double that to 10 tents and 20 people. I mean, it seems like if we're going to do it just for 5 tents and 10 people, it's a lot to put up for a minimal number of people. It's not even going to dent anything. I mean, not that 20 will, but if we're going to put, toilets there or a shower trailer or something, I think it maybe ought to be doubled in size. Well, if we can get the people to do it.
I think also that, just to clarify, I think the 5 tents and 10 people was at any one location, not necessarily total numbers.
Right. No, but I was thinking at any one location, especially like the ball field, which is, I played ball there. There's definitely room for more than 5 tents. It's a pretty good sized ball field.
Councilor Gill.
So I just want to be very clear that, if we did move forward with this, Montpelier would be the only city in the state of Vermont and possibly maybe the Northeast to designate an encampment on city property. And I think that comes with a huge amount of risks. I think it comes with risks of, increased patrol, increased, city staff resources, which we just heard are very limited. I think we have to think very clearly about this and very strategically. And, you know, what we've heard over and over and over from providers is the one thing we need to focus on is housing. And so do we put our time, energy, and resources in encampments, which we know are going to drain city resources, when we should be using our time wisely to focus on housing opportunities? So I think it's a risk, you know, benefit analysis here that we really need to think through, because if we're going to divert staff to looking and monitoring and supporting and patrolling encampments, that is going to take away from what we know truly helps is housing. So I think we have to just be very clear about what our priorities are and what we can and can't do. Sorry. It's my microphone. There's something over there.
I think the breathing actually is coming from you, Jim. I think. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Thanks. Thank you, Councilor Gill. Other questions, comments from council on this?
I mean, Kelly, I just want to make sure, or Manager Gray, I just want to I want to make sure you're getting the direction that you need. And are you asking us if we should be moving forward with putting this memorandum of understanding out as an RFP in lieu of the group that had originally, you know, encouraged us to develop it?
Yes.
Yeah.
A precursor to that is, do you want to continue to explore this?
Right.
I think as Adrian has raised.
I mean, I have to say, I agree with many things that Adrian said. I think, you know, given where we are in terms of staffing, particularly in police and the resources that are available to the city, and, you know, we did receive legal advice on what the implications of having an encampment in the city would be, and a level of risk that, you know, I think at this time, it's just not acceptable.
Councilor Brown, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with many of the points that have been made, but particularly, I've been really interested in trying to find a way to say yes to this, because it was something that was brought to us as a request. And if it's not coming to us as a request anymore, then that for me takes away a lot of what could possibly have made it work to begin with, which was that we would have volunteers and we'd have another organization taking responsibility for it. And if we don't have that, then I don't think it's worth us putting a lot of time and energy into, especially given that there are other legal risks that would come up. So I think it'd be okay with me if we just table this for now.
Okay. At the moment, I'm just tracking one voice for continuing in this line and 3 voices not for continuing this line. Mr. Jelacic, you have your hand up, and we have a yellow card up, just not to rush anybody, but keeping an eye on our time.
Yes. I'm sorry, I don't know if Kelly mentioned, but another idea that I think could be folded into the current encampment policy is giving 2 weeks notice that somebody would need to move along. And I think that's a useful idea. The other thing is, I find it challenging at the moment to stop working on this, because I think having a policy for next year is not going to happen in a week next year. So while we may not be able to enact it now, I think being able to do the research to make sure that we have our ducks in a row for a year from now when we actually do need camping, or we need to revisit this discussion, rather than table the work, I can continue working on the policy and trying to figure out. New information comes to light every day. I was at the situation table earlier today, and someone shared with me that Middlebury has a very comprehensive encampment policy, which I hadn't seen before. So I think working on it without trying to get the MOU created as an RFP still makes sense. Just that's my staff perspective.
Manager Curry, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Matt properly anticipates next year's conversations. And
Abs-
we're trying to be in a better position, so we're not completely reactive. And so now we're looking ahead towards cold weather sheltering. I think it makes sense. We can continue to explore this for next year.
Do you have a sense from council on what direction you need to take moving forward?
Well, I need a sense from council, between now and next year, council could change, you may have a different profile related to the absorption of risk around this. I mean, I have heard that there's just some reticence, like there's too much risk about this period at all. And so clarity around whether we should continue to work on the details of this MOU in anticipation of either a changed council, changed notion of risk or responsiveness for next year, I think would be helpful.
Well, I'd like to point out that, I mean, one of those risks is that in the event that we don't have the financial tools, whether it's just money or insurance or whatnot, to completely outfit multiple encampment sites with complete ADA compliance, right? And that would be something that would be completely outside of our ability to deliver properly. However, it is possible that between now and next year, a boatload of money falls onto this very topic that might allow us to do such a thing, whether it's from the federal government or the state government or what have you. And it seems to me that after hearing Mr. Jelasik's point, which is we keep working on this idea because it may become useful to us in the future and we don't want to be trying to play catch up at the last minute, that it makes sense to continue working on this. But I'm also hearing from council that the desire to move this specific MOU forward in the very short term with no one who is willing to sign the MOU doesn't seem like the best use of your time. My personal take is that given your current capacity and all of those factors, one, maintaining a long view and also understanding what the council feels in the short view, again, do you feel like that gives you enough clarity for how to organize your work now, or do you have something that you would like for us to sort of go around the room and say yes, yes, no?
Sure. I don't think it's there's any harm in refining details around this, anticipating future questions, Matt's ongoing conversations. I think it's fine. But this is a topic that will come back around every year.
For sure. Councilors Alfano or Cone, would you like to weigh in on this before we move forward?
I agree with what Ben and Adrian have and Carrie have expressed. I think it's just, the timing is just not right now. I don't think we really can afford, particularly down 4 police officers. I mean, among other factors. But I agree that this is something we need to continue to prepare for a day when we may need to act. And so I would support continuing to research and nurture the relationships that will be required.
Okay, thank you. Manager Curry, go ahead.
Oh.
With the next.
Nothing else, I think.
Nothing else. Okay, at this time, we will have public comment. I saw Mr. Kelman's hand up first, and then we'll go to the room. Mr. Kelman, go ahead.
Peter Kelman, Montpelier. I think that Matt Jelasik has given a very good reason for continuing to work on this. And I'll just add one more. When the president of the United States refused to give money, this is back in the 70s, to New York State, it sent a signal to New York City, I'm sorry. It sent a signal to the city that the president didn't care about New York City, sorry. Don't send a signal to the people who are homeless that you don't care, please. If you read the MOU, it does not call for the city staff to be doing things. It calls for a provider. Now, it will cost money, but as the mayor just said, maybe money will come along. Maybe it could be put in the budget for next year. But please read carefully what it says there. This is not going to stress an understaffed city. And I think this MOU is drawn up quite carefully, and I would say quite conservatively, to minimize risk and keep raising this specter of risk. How about the risk of continuing to have 100 people living outdoors in this city? That is a risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kalman. Mr. Whitaker, I saw your hand next, and then we'll go to Mr. Bellini.
Yeah, Steve Whitaker, I think that the MOU was crafted intentionally to this result. And it's part of the disingenuous kick it down the road and stall and make the hurdle so high that no provider would respond. And I saw this outcome as soon as I read the MOU, but yet I still can't get the comments that were received on the MOU because public records, responses are dysfunctional in our city. Kelly put in the memorandum on Friday that it had been circulated to the Housing Committee. Housing Committee had not commented on it because they didn't have it, and Zach didn't send it out at the end of the day. And so I've asked for the comments. What comments were received? Oh, we don't know what you're talking about. 3 different iterations back and forth with Evelyn. We don't know what you're talking about. I said, it says in the packet that Kelly put out the MOU for comment and had comments back. Still haven't seen them. So this is a game that people are playing while we have an emergency. People are getting assaulted. Innocent pedestrians and old people are getting assaulted because the desperation, and this is how you respond to the desperation of the unhoused people. It's pathetic. You should be ashamed of yourself. This has been going on for 6-7 years, and you've done virtually nothing. And there is proposals, but to send them to the dump, why don't you send them to the landfill in Coventry? The stump dump as an eligible site rather than, Peace Park or Gateway Park or Home Farm Way. I mean, do you take yourselves seriously? And then you can keep all your secret legal fears to yourselves, right? The city has immunity. The city can allow use of public land. There's a simple cure to the zoning.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Yeah, and your time is going to be up.
Is there anyone else? Oh, Mr. Bellini, you'll be next, followed by Ms. Little and Mr. Hughes. I believe you have spoken on this topic already. If we have the time, I will allow you, but I think we've already run out of time allotted for this topic. Mr. Bellini, go ahead.
Hello. I worked 42 years under the auspices of the Agency of Human Services. And I just want to tell everybody that this city has a great deal of compassion. It has compassion in our elected officials, and it has compassion in our townspeople. I see it and I feel it. And it is a huge issue that you're up against. And you must be frustrated and feel powerless because you can't make enormous changes just by wishing they would happen. And I just want to tell you that, in case you're ever wondering, you've got plenty of compassion. Montpelier's got tons of it. And I noticed that we have Good Samaritan now on Barry Street, and I'd like to encourage the city to at least somehow get some of our homeless people to try to get involved with that program, because I did look at the program online and it seems robust and comprehensive, not perfect, but gee, pretty good. And they're experts. And I think that's a step in the right direction. And don't ever doubt yourselves. You're doing good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bellini. Ms. Little. You start.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. There's no doubt that the area needs more affordable housing, and concentrating on housing will certainly help the overall picture. It will help people who are housing insecure, but unless it's targeted to a specific population, it will not help the people who are out most visible and who have brought this whole topic to a head. and whether or not managed campgrounds will work, and there's some question about that, there are still people out there, many of whom have disabilities of one kind or another, whether you can see them or not. And if we continue to move them from day to day, they will become more and more unstable. And this is just incredibly inhumane. But these people are not going to evaporate. I mean, I appreciate what Matt said about, I think, working on the MOU on the theory that there may be money available later is a great idea. But in the meantime, there are people out there, they're not going away. And it's just horrendous to me that we expect people to exist while being moved from day to day. It's not safe. So at least allowing people to camp somewhere in small groups, something has to happen. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Little. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak on this topic? Ms. Ward.
I just want to agree with Don Little. I think that that you're talking about liability when people's lives are at stake. I'm sorry. I just think it's a lot to expect them and to be dumping their stuff when they have nothing and they have nowhere to be. And so I get that there's a liability, but there's a greater liability by leaving these people out that I deal with on a daily basis. If you had no roof over your head, imagine how you could get back on your feet. And I understand that you probably haven't imagined that. But if you then get moved and then people are telling me someone took my stuff because it was abandoned and threw it out, and I will not say that I know the veracity of those comments, but something's happening to their stuff. And when people say my mother's picture got thrown away and it's the only thing I have left, I just think we have to balance between the two of these things. It's not that everyone here is heartless. It's not that everyone here knows all the answers, but there's a middle ground and we need to do something now, not in a year. And I agree with Steve that it's been year after year after year that nothing feels like it's getting done. And so if altering somehow a place or two where people can camp safely and not get kicked down the road week after week or even every 2 weeks, would you like to move every 2 weeks? It's got to be helpful, right? To be able to allow them to be somewhere. And if you're policing them every day anyways, because I'm hearing the disputes night after night here on the main street. So if you're policing them anyway, why not have a designated area? And I would like to hear more about what Steve mentioned about whether the town is indemnified against certain liability if things are set up properly to allow that to happen. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, and then Ms. Smith, and then we're going to close public comment.
So I want to thank everybody for just this topic. Evelyn, I want to say you do a great job. I didn't know what you did, but now I do, and keep rocking. As far as the camps, how do I say this? There's a way to do this, and so that everyone doesn't feel put upon. But it does require a discussion like this with some of the people involved. I'm trying to put a face to some people who just wouldn't want to be here. However, we talk about them. And, you know, I appreciate what the religious community is doing. I appreciate what the city is doing. I appreciate what retirees are doing. I appreciate what stay-at-home moms are doing. There's a scope of work that needs to be done. If you have not been homeless in the last 3 to 5 years, you have no idea what's going on really out there and what's waiting as far as reform. And like I said, I just want to provide a a voice and a face. It doesn't look like me, but but I'm providing a face because we need to humanize this issue in a we need 17 police officers in order to do something about it. Because a lot of people just want to be left alone. And, provided services that can provide a next leap of opportunity, not just, generations of take. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Ms. Smith.
Hi again. This might not be news to you, but it is to me about how successful Finland has been with dealing with the homelessness problem there. And one of the statistics was that they say that for every homeless person that they house, they save $15,000 per year. They have a radical strategy that they call the housing first. If you've heard of that, housing first. If you're going to get better, if you're going to overcome your mental health issues, your addiction issues, your relationship issues. It's a lot easier if you've got a roof over your head. In this country, we seem to have something like it's called a staircase approach, where people have to like fix their problems first and earn the right to have a roof over their heads. I'm pretty sure that most of the people that are out there, I know many of their stories. If you had undergone what they had undergone, and I'm going to say in childhood, the level of trauma and abuse, they're not going to be okay, and they deserve to be taken care of because they didn't deserve to be sex trafficked as children. They didn't deserve the level of abuse that they suffered as children and neglect that they suffered as children. And so if they have to be taken care of for the rest of their lives, they are children. They have arrested development. I know what that is firsthand. Arrested development is no matter how hard you try, you're 30 years old and you're still 14 on the inside. That's not their fault, okay? We also have an economic system that is designed to push people over the edge, and the most vulnerable people are going over the edge. We have an underlying attitude of social Darwinism and Calvinism that says these people deserve and these people do not, and these people are the undeserving poor, and these people have worked hard. If you have the ability to work hard and get somewhere in this world, God bless you, and thank God that you have it. Some people don't have that ability, and it's because it was stolen from them. Stolen from them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. All right, at this time, we're going to close public comment on this. Are there any final questions or comments from council or from the manager or from Mr. Jelasik? Mr. Sheridan?
Yeah, to think that housing's going to be the answer, Adrian, is just totally unrealistic. I mean, unless you're going to make it free so that they can go in it for free, they don't have any money to pay for it. They don't have any money to keep it up. I mean, I hear Matt say, oh, it's a housing issue. No, it's not just a housing issue. It's a financial issue. You can have a house all you want, but if you can't pay for it, you're not going to be in it a lot. And that's why some people are out on the streets, because we push the cost of living too high. But to think that, well, gee, it's just a housing issue, you've never been homeless. That's all I can say. And it's just totally unrealistic unless you're going to provide free housing for everybody.
All right, thank you, Councilor Sheridan. I mean, I think we can all agree that providing housing for everyone is outside of our reach. As great as it sounds and as correct as housing first as an approach is, it's not something that is within the municipal government's power to provide to people. Certainly not this time. So seeing no other comments from council or
Mayor?
staff, we're going to.
Mayor, may I add something important?
No, sir. We've closed public comment and we're moving on to the next agenda item. We're already behind schedule. But Mr. Goldman, if you'd like to follow up and talk to me personally, I'd be happy to talk to you. Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to move on to item number 12, the CVRPC Future Land Use Map Report Out. Manager Curry, you can say something if you'd like, but Mr. Miller is going to tee this up for us, I think.
He's our resident expert. Thanks, Mike.
All right, so tonight.
Nationally award-winning plan.
So thank you. Mike Miller, Planning Director. So I do want to note that we do have Christian Meyer online as well, although I don't know if we'll need him, but if there's something that comes up, we can always go and check in with him. So there's no discussion or there's no decision tonight. This is just going to be a discussion item just to kind of give everybody an update on the CVRPC future land use map. So as a result of Act 181, the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission submitted its preliminary future land use map to the Land Use Review Board on June 25th. And that's for initial review and approval. And this is going to kick off an iterative approval process between the Land Use Review Board and the Regional Planning Commission that's going to continue over the next 6 months. The Land Use Review Board will review the draft future land use map with other proposed updates to the regional plan and will provide comments to the RPC to incorporate in their final plan, which is expected to be adopted this fall. Once the CVRPC approves that final plan, it will go back to the LURB for its final approval. So, and that should be probably in early 27. So at this stage, what can we do looking at this map? And it was in your packet, and I'll bring it up and put it on the screen in a minute, is we can review the future land use map that's been submitted and make recommendations to the Land Use Review Board to consider. Anyone can make comments on this, but what we're asking for the city is that the Planning Commission will be compiling the city's formal recommendation for submission. And so the thought would be if council has thoughts, recommendations, you're certainly welcome to send your own, but we're kind of asking if everybody could get their comments from housing committees to council to the Planning Commission. They can go through and review these and compile them into a single recommendation that we can take to the Land Use Review Board. The Planning Commission will meet on the 13th and 27th of July. And the Land Use Review Board is not expected to begin its review until August. So we do have a window. We do have a couple of meetings. And the future land use map, just a little bit of background, is important because it determines which areas may qualify for Tier 1A or Tier 1B designation. These designations will either fully exempt a property from Act 250 or partially exempt them. And your packet contained what CVRPC submitted. And what I'm going to have here is a slightly updated map. And it also had the Montpelier's future land use map, which was built using the same rules. So this new process that was set up at the state was to try to be consistent across the entire state. It used to be every regional planning commission had its own district names. And what they did is created a set of rules. The future land use methodology and process, which everybody had to use. So there's more consistency. So we can't just create things. We have to use the rules that we have in front of us. I'm just going to pull. Oh, I've got to remember, go to share. Oh, get out of the way.
Here, it's not in the packet.
Okay, so this is up. Let me close these two out. So these are, I'm going to go back a little bit. So this is, if you were to go into this site, and you guys have that, we'll get that out after the meeting. This is something Nick put together from my office. It's a side-by-side, and you'll see that one on the left is a future land use map from 2025. That's what we adopted into our city plan. On the right is the regional app, and as the regional application that was sent in. If you move around on the map or zoom in, they stay the same. It gets a little confusing for people to do this. So I'm just going to shift over to look at just one map because I think that's going to help us not get confused. But this, as you're looking, you know, you can see from side by side, National Life is the same color, but they have colored the southern portion, a southern part of their property differently than we had. And so you see these differences. And in this case, the dark purple is basically what we'll call the downtown, and the pink is the planned growth area. And these are the two kind of big ones that we'll be talking about. And I'll zoom out just a touch more. And So you just can look at the colors and see that we are a little bit bigger, a little more pink on ours than they have on theirs. And I don't know how much detail you'd like me to go into, but I can quickly go through and say there are a couple of errors that I'm going to point out to them. And then a couple of places where we have recommendations already that we think are going in there. But we're going to be looking for what other opportunities people can come up with. One of the errors I will point out right now, this is Sabin's pasture. This area is the flood hazard area. There's a rule that says if it's a flood hazard area, it has to be designated conservation, except if it's in a designated area. This is in the designated growth center. That's the floodplain. That should not be there. That's an error. So we will point that out. Just want to go through and say we've kind of looked at this and found a few of these little things. On Country Club Road, it's supposed to include the entire parcel, and this little piece got skipped out. So that should be a change. Some of the recommendations we're going to have are looking at some of these orange areas that we have here. This is Berlin Street. This is an area we identified in our plan as including all of Sherwood, kind of down close to River Street, is all we had in the planned growth area. Primarily because there is access. This is the Hospital Hill bus route. Even though there's not a sidewalk, that's why they pulled it out. There's no sidewalk. Well, there's the bus route. So we think all of this should be eligible. Should all be in. The Planning Commission will make the final determination of what's going to go into our letter. From a staff recommendation, we think this area should also be in the planned growth area and also be eligible for that. And again, the big key for being out of Act 250 for a lot of these isn't because we want 130 unit things. It's because most of our developers are small and they're building a quadplex here and a quadplex there and a triplex there, and they add up. And once you get over 10 in 5 years, all the other projects have to go through Act 250, even if it's a single family home. So by having areas, there's a lot of land in this area that could have an extra house or two. And so that's why we wanted to do it. Independence Green, Freedom Drive. This is another area we have in pink in the planned growth area. They have designated in orange. We think that's a good change to make. There is a difference over here on Crestview. We included Crestview out to the property line and they cut it off here. So we think that area, including some area over here to the west of these Terrace Street properties, in our map, it was in this map, it's not. We think that would be another opportunity to get those areas in. And I'll just touch on a few.
Like, you mean in his planned growth area?
In his planned growth area, yeah. Here was a question that was in, this is Elm Street. This at the top of the screen is getting into that's where the pool is. So just south of the pool, we have an area that's been designated in yellow. Yellow is rural general. And I think we can all, driving out that road test, that's not rural general. We would like to see that planned growth area. But as we said, the requirement is everything in the flood hazard area has to be green. But we think that should be green with pink, not green with yellow. So that's another one we're going to kind of push back on. And one or two more really quickly. Up here, I don't remember the name of this road. Maybe if I click in one more, Westwood. So the west side of Westwood is in, the east side is not. That doesn't make any sense. Either it's both sides are in or both sides are out. We had recommended in our future land use plan that both of these would be in, and the cutoff was at Murray Road. So all of this would be in the planned growth area. And then I think the only other change we had was not really for a planned growth area. They designated Gallison Hill as a general rural, and we had designated it as transition. And that's really because it's got sewer and water. It's a heavily traveled road. The reason why it's not planned growth area in pink is it's not connected, and it also doesn't have the sidewalk. It needs a requisite sidewalk. It doesn't have public transit. So we don't have another checkbox to get that in, but we don't think it should be classified as rural general. And again, those are all relatively small things and we think these are good, but we're interested in hearing what other people think, where changes are, and we don't have to have that conversation necessarily tonight, because the planning commission, if the public wants to really comment, we really want the public to be kind of giving that input to the planning commission, so we can make sure we've cataloged all of the places where we think we should be making adjustments and making those arguments. And if we don't get it, that's at this step, we can always, it's an iterative process. We can go back to the Regional Planning Commission for the fall update, and we have other opportunities. For the most part, if you put these two maps side by side, you'll see we've got a lot of what we asked for, which is a lot of the downtown. But there are these smaller areas where especially our developers have come in and said, we'd really like it that were changed, or we'd really like it that were changed because we've got projects that could benefit out in those areas. And I'll
Mr. Miller, for the public, if folks do want to give their opinions to the planning department, what is the best way for them to do that?
They could certainly send me an email at mmiller@montpelier-vt.org, just or planning@montpelier-vt.org. Both of those will get to us, and we'll forward those on to the planning commission.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Mr. Doyle, or Councilor Doyle.
Mike, I think this is great. Like, I really appreciate the kind of differences that you've identified and the way in which you're thinking about them. Can you talk a little bit about two things? One is the difference between Tier 1A and Tier 1B in relation to planned growth areas. You know, so if we have Country Club Road as a planned growth area, that'll automatically be a Tier 1B?
So this is going to come down to, at some point, and Christian can talk about the exact timing, council can vote to request to be included into Tier 1B. And so that way, as soon as the map is approved, the Tier 1B status will go into effect. And the Tier 1B status says you can develop up to 80 units without going through Act 250. But it doesn't get everything out of Act 250. If you get Tier 1A, which is a much bigger process and is going to be a much more complex application, we would then have everything, not only housing, but commercial would also be out of Act 250. We'd be 100% out of Act 250 for everything within those designated areas. And then we would take over any existing Act 250 permits that exist in that area. So there's a lot that goes into that, but it's been generally talked about that really Montpelier is about the only one you have to have robust planning and zoning. And Montpelier is one of the only ones in Washington County that would kind of meet that level. So we do expect that.
So to that end, right? Like if it was Tier 1A, it doesn't necessarily mean there would be rampant commercial development all over. It would just mean that instead of having to go through Act 250, which could potentially be redundant from the zoning that the city already has and maintains, that would be the governing.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you still have to go through, normally you'd have to go through and get local permits and Act 250. We don't get a lot of Act 250 anyway, so the commercial side is kind of, it's true. We would, I think one of the few was the hotel proposal, because there was a weird quirk of the rule that said that a hotel room counts as a dwelling unit, and therefore there was 80 dwelling units in the hotel, and that tripped the hotel into being an Act 250 permit, which we all kind of scratch our heads and say it doesn't make any sense. But other than that, I think since I've been here, that's one of very, very few Act 250 permits that have come through.
When you say you mean a single developer? Right, when you say once you get to a certain number of units,
yes,
you trigger Act 250.
The developer,
a developer,
correct,
okay.
Correct. Yeah, a developer who's working on a project is going to start keeping count of how many things, because if they do more than 10 units in 5 years, their next project will get them into Act 250. So these exemptions really help them out considerably.
Okay, to try and be cognizant of our time, anything else from counselors here? Okay, we're going to open up for public comment. Mr. Goldman, I see your hand up. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak on this topic? Mr. Anderson? All right, we'll have Mr. Goldman, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Whitaker, and then we're already stretching our time, so we'll try to limit it to that. Mr. Goldman, go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike, thank you for all the great maps. Mike, could you please put the two maps side by side again?
All right, specific area that you wanted at?
Yes, please. And thank you so much for talking about the flood issue with Sabins. Thank you very, very much. And we're working hard on that. Could you please head towards the Crestview one? I just wanted to point something out about that line you referenced. Thank you. If you could, okay, so that's not a property line. That is a line of delineation from a previous Act 250 blessed permit. And all of that protects us from all the setbacks from wetlands and things that we were supposed to do. And that is the delineation right now that we have submitted to Susan as a JO request to try to revive that project. So I just wanted to point that out, and that we're of course hoping that yes, we'll be able to have all the growth center that we can have. Right now, even with the, well, as it stands right now, the half-mile sweep picks everything up. So we're able to do it. The major part of the JO request really was because we're doing 3 projects at once, and we had to make sure that they didn't overlap within the 5 mile and the 5 mile radius. And so I just wanted to point that out. That's not a lot delineation. That was an Act 250 previous line that we had worked with. Thank you so much. And Mike, the mapping is fantastic. Thank you.
Mr. Goldman, thank you very much for your comments. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. And Mike, these are great maps. My question, I guess I just want to bring this up. Is there any way we could overlay maximum benefits for the city as far as tax development onto the map? You know, so if there was a, you know, let's say a distribution center on one side, it would cut out taxes for homeowners on this side. Just some type of opportunity growth or development, mindfulness on who we bring into the property that could help the city recoup a lot of the money that we don't have and we continue to tax residents for. Just a question.
Great, thank you for that. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask if M. Miller at Montpelier-BT.org, and maybe he can get you those answers for yourself. Mr. Whitaker, go ahead.
Steve Whitaker again. I think that we're pipe dreaming to, and there's a pun in there too, this $8 or $11 million of pipes to go up Country Club Road that is not secure. But Country Club Road is not walkable to town. It doesn't belong in Tier 1A right now. And I will oppose Tier 1A, and I'm well prepared. But my point is we need to do the brownfield first. We need to do a master plan first. We need to make sure that we don't cede any land until we have a master plan that meets the city's objectives. And if you read the specifics, I think to ask for this much planned growth area when we don't have complete streets suitability for most of it is really going to make a fool out of our city for overreach. And I guess I'm getting used to that.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no other hands, we're going to close public comment at this time. Mr. Miller, do you have anything final to add on this before we move to the next agenda item?
Nope, I was just going to get out of the stop chair, and if anyone has questions, obviously we've got a couple of weeks. Send me any questions you have. Happy to answer them. Christian Meyer's another one who can answer questions very specific. If you've got very specific questions of what the RPC role is, he would be very happy to answer those questions for you.
Great. Anything final from council?
Thanks, Mike.
Great, thank you very much. We're moving on to the next agenda item. We're now on to item number 13. We have very little time for this, I think partly because the memo was somewhat thorough, but Manager Curry, would you like to speak on this topic, the ADA update?
Yeah, at the request of Councilor Cohn, she had requested that we provide a update from staff on our efforts to improve our alignment with the requirements of our Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan. And so staff hustled to compile the various projects that touch their departments and provide that report here in the memo to you. We did have a pretty quick turnaround to pull this together, so I did not ask staff to come and give a thorough presentation. I'm hoping that the report can stand on its face as the written document that it is, but if there are follow-up questions, I'm more than happy to take those and be sure that we get additional input out to the council on that. So, you know, these things happen over time as we are making improvements. We are coming into compliance. You know, the elevator here being the most recent improvement. Evelyn gave a very thorough report on what is to come for the website. And then as our streets are being upgraded, we are bringing those into alignment as well. Chris Lumber here also spoke about some of our facility upgrades. So if there's specific questions, I'd be happy to take those now.
Any specific questions from council? Seeing none. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this item? Councilor Cohn, go ahead.
Thank you. So I want to study on this report a little bit more and reach out to residents who brought this issue to my attention. I think the next step for me to work with Kelly and the city staff, if there are any gaps we can fill out. So thank you for the report. It is good information to me. And I want to be sure that residents who have residents who wanted to be informed about this issue, I hope they can also access this report. So maybe it's an Evelyn question. So yeah, thank you. Thank you again.
Giving a thumbs up from the back of the room.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. And then Mr. Kelman, go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
I just have a quick question or suggestion to the city manager that while you're doing the alignment of ADA, that you look at our homelessness issues that we've been discussing, camping, et cetera, and making sure that we're observing ADA requirements when we clear people out who are in wheelchairs, et cetera. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kelman. Seeing no other hands, I believe we'll consider item 13 done. We'll move on to item 14. I apologize to everyone. We were really ahead of schedule and we're no longer really ahead of schedule. So with this, I'll hand this over to Councilor Gill to tee up. We're shooting for 20, but if you could do it in 15, that'd be terrific.
Share my screen.
Like reminds me of my kids, like piano, violin, and
My heartbeat has started
yeah.
sinking.
Yeah.
All right, I'll time my still.
I got you.
You cannot hear her.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello? Is it working? You can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we are bringing this back. It's the performance management plan for our city manager. We've worked on this for a couple months, and hopefully tonight we can at least have a first final version of it. That is the goal. But please keep in mind that performance management plans, they could be evolved through time. But my ask of you is I'll go through it, but to approve this plan, and I'll show you where the changes are, and for us to schedule our first performance evaluation meeting. The goal was to do it quarterly, and so we're already 2 months past. And so this is a beginning, right? This is the first iteration of a performance management review process for our city manager. As Kelly said, you know, this is something that the city wants to build upon, and let's lead by example of having the council put together some structure, some process for our city manager. So that is what we are trying to do, knowing that it might not be 100% perfect out of the gate, but let's rip the Band-Aid off and try something, knowing that we can always make edits along the way. And so I did get I asked last time we presented this, I asked for edits and revisions. I did get them. And so I just wanted to highlight them very, very quickly, just so that you know what changed. And so I did track changes in here. So if you all accept them, we can accept the track changes, move forward with this version. And so we just added to be more clear about the implementation process, that it includes the city council and may require executive session, just to be very clear about in the implementation process. When we have our quarterly check-ins, our mid-year review on our annual evaluation, just to be very clear, I added that in there. I don't know if anyone can see this. I did just kind of clean up some of the language. I'm used to using the word KPIs, and so I think I changed some of the language between KPIs and performance metrics. So I kept it all the same word using performance metrics. So that was my bad of just using my own verbiage. And so it should be very clear throughout that this is a performance metric using the performance evaluation. I'm not going to go through all this because we went through this last time. I did change this to strategic outcomes, and we have priority weighting in here. Oh. We have priority weights. So I know Palin asked just to make sure that this was clear. It looks a little funky because of track changes, but that is, I think that was 12%. And
yes,
I'm scrolling down here. So just before we approve this, I want to make sure the water lines replaced and repaired have the right feet for performance metrics in there. And once again, these goals were pulled directly from our strategic plan. So Kelly's success is based on her management and support of her staff. And that is how we look at our strategic plan and really kind of grade her performance of how she executes the plan and supports her staff through this. That's why it's important what she was saying, that everyone in her staff needs to know what the plan is, because this is how we are measuring her success. It is all aligned, both coming down in a waterfall effect and going back up. And so I'm going to scroll down. After consultation with Sal, we just added some language in this section that says revenue allocation structure system for local options tax, because we're still in the process of building that. So we wanted to make sure developmentally we were looking at the structure. We still need to build the structure for our local options tax. So that seemed like a good first step in the first year. We're not going to magically, I think we have to build a structure first before we start growing it. And so developmentally, this is the first 0 to 12 months. And so we wanted to be very clear as, Kelly grows into her role, to set very clear expectations of, as what she said with her, examples. She's building her house and the foundation needs to be built first. So based on building a foundation, that's how we want to look at her performance. What else did we have? Those were the only significant changes that I received. And so if everybody is okay with that, I think that is the first question. Are we okay with those changes? Can we go ahead and approve this? And 2, once again, I'd like to schedule a time for her performance review and get that started.
Let's take those one at a time,
Yeah.
shall we? So are there any clarifying questions from council? I'm going to the hands. No, I'm not seeing any. Is there any public comment on this topic? Mr. Whitaker.
Steve Whitaker, I did give comments to Adrian, but not until tonight. So the plan in your packet, among other expectations, integrity, transparency, and accountability, and accessibility and responsiveness to residents. Those are the right words. My concern is the instrument gives you no way to measure them. Your housing and paving goals carry hard numbers. Transparency carries none. So let me offer you some concrete to measure it against. On July 3rd weekly report, the city states that it is committed to open government and timely access to public records, that it continues to respond to requests in accordance with Public Records Act. I'd ask you to weigh that claim against the record. I filed 14 records request appeals with the city manager that received no written determination of any kind, not a denial, not an extension, simply no response. Under the Public Records Act, the city manager is the official who decides those appeals. So the same officer who assures you of compliance is the officer who has left more than a dozen appeals about her administration's record unanswered. One example, for more than a year, I've asked specifically and repeatedly for the certified mail notices showing the abutters were told about the right-of-way survey before it took place. What the city produced were certified receipts dated 16 months after the field work they supposedly document. My request that the city either produce the earlier notices or certify in writing that none exist, as the law requires, has gone unanswered. The city's taken 10-day extensions, citing records custodian unavailability. The Records Act permits extensions only for 3 reasons: records held off-site, voluminous search, or consultation with another agency. A staff member being unavailable is none of them. The city's invoked the same non-statutory ground on at least 3 separate requests. None of this asks you to take my word for any single dispute. It's drawn from the city's own correspondence, and I'm happy to provide it. These delays are not harmless. If the city proceeds to disturb soil at sites like Feast Farm while withholding the very records that would document conditions there, the soil testing, the FEMA project file, both now delayed or priced out of reach. It's not merely slowing access, it's altering irreversible physical evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. You're over time.
Unanswered.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Later,
Mr. Whitaker, you passed your 2 minutes. I gave you some grace time and your time is
I
up.
have one paragraph.
I'm sorry, your time, you've already gone over your time.
So when do you plan to deal with this?
Thank you for your
When do
comments,
you
Mr.
deal with it?
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Whitaker. This is not a back and forth debate.
It's
This
a
is an
debate.
opportunity for your public
It's an
comment.
invasion.
Councillor Gill.
So I just wanted to point out that in the packet, this was also new. I created a city manager performance review form and a city council review form, and that I'm hoping that Evelyn can use her magic to put it into what do you guys do? What is your technology? Density. So hopefully this would act as a template for the review form and hopefully expedite that process to relieve some, administrative burden. But those were 2 forms that I did put in there, just so that you knew that was new. Because that was a question, well, what form are we going to use? So there you go.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments from council? Okay, at this point, we would entertain a motion to approve or not approve this performance management evaluation form. Hopefully to approve. Move to approve. Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any other further discussion or debate on this topic? The motion, go ahead, Mr. Doyle.
Sorry, I would just like to thank you, Adrian, for your work on this. Like, I know it's a lot of work and I really appreciate your expertise on it. I would say I do feel like they're ambitious, particularly the 0 to 12 months. And I think probably all of us know when you kind of take a new job, it particularly in a challenging time, I think it takes time to find the ground. So I think we want to just keep that. And I'm thinking of my children's report cards of 1 to 4, my kids are upset if they don't get a 4 the first marking period. But, I think we need to just think about that, right? That these are ambitious goals. It's going to take time and we want to see meaningful progress towards those goals. And so, but again, ultimately, I just really want to say thanks for your work on this.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Any other comments or discussion, debate on this topic? All right, the motion before us is to approve the performance management evaluation form as, and then the red line changes as presented. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimously passes. Thank you very much. We're moving on.
I look forward to delivering on all those goals.
One more thing, Mayor.
Yes.
We need to schedule
Oh,
her
right.
evaluation.
Yeah, thank you.
So we could either do that via email, but I don't want to forget it as an action item. I don't think we have to schedule it now, but I think that is something that,
We're looking at the 6-month check-in.
okay,
I can do that.
okay, perfect.
Great. All right, thank you. We'll consider that take that as read. We're moving on to other business. Is there any other business? All right, city council reports. Councilor Gill will give you a break. We'll start with you, Councilor Doyle.
I just have one that I should have made a while ago. I referenced, I think, a couple meetings ago about the Downtown and Historic Preservation Conference, which was held in St. Albans this year. And I neglected to mention that the night before the conference, there's kind of a special dinner. And at that dinner, Eric Gilbertson, who is a resident of Montpelier and actually my neighbor, is the chair of our Historic Preservation Commission in Montpelier, and had a 50-year career in historic preservation, both as a state historic preservation officer at the state of Vermont, and then he actually worked for 15 years at the organization that I work at, the Preservation Trust. Eric received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the State Historic Preservation Officer and from the Preservation Trust. You know, there's probably seriously, not that many people in Vermont that have done more for the field of historic preservation than Eric Gilbertson. And there's probably not an old building in the state of Vermont that he hasn't been in. And he's an incredible asset to the state of Vermont and his leadership of the Historic Preservation Commission in Montpelier. We're just so lucky to have him. It's a wonderful commission. Brian's a great person on the commission, but I want to just acknowledge Eric's incredible leadership and service to the city and to the state of Vermont, and to acknowledge that he received that Lifetime Achievement Award. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councilor Sheridan.
I just want to say thank you to the police, the fire, the public works, all of the people that took part to make July 3rd one of the best July 3rds I've taken part in, and I've walked in 16 of them. I want to thank Montpelier Alive for their part. I don't think there were any incidents. It's the only day of the year that the council is loved by everybody. And so 4 of us marched or walked in it. And I want to thank the city manager and Mark and Matt for including their kids to walk ahead of us, who were chanting together to the people. It really was a great opening. We had a grader behind us and the new dump truck. And the fireworks were just one of the best shows I've seen in Montpelier. They even faked us out with a false kind of finale where everybody started cheering, and then all of a sudden it went back to the regular show, and it was just kind of a come on, I guess, or something like that. The actual finale was awesome, and huge roar by the crowd. And literally, we walked by thousands of people. Thousands of people with no incident, maybe not quite as good as Woodstock, but still, it was really nice to see. But we had a lot of participation from city employees. Yes, I know they're paid well, but they gave up a day to do that. And I thought they did a wonderful job. I spoke with many of the policemen and the public works people out there. So thank you, everybody who put that on. It is one day that all of Montpelier loves each other.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Councilor Sheridan. Councilor Alfano, anything?
Just quickly on the Complete Streets Committee, they're working on a couple of things. One is revisions to the e-bike ordinance. I guess they're trying to give it some teeth because there are some issues with e-bikes, safety issues that they believe aren't properly addressed. Enforcement's difficult. They've been working on that. That's likely to come to us sometime in the next few months. The other thing is they have written and made a motion last meeting to pass it and recommend it adoption to the council of a new charter, partly because they did not combine with the infrastructure committee, but they're dealing with the infrastructure issues. So they wanted to sort of revamp their, from an purely advocacy committee to advocacy and infrastructure. So that's likely to come to us in the near future, I would think.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gill.
Should we give a quick update on CCR?
Oh. Go ahead.
So I didn't have anything written down. Memory. Okay, so Country Club Road, very quick update. Just so that you know, we've met, just a quick, you guys aren't living and breathing this every day, but we're down to 2 developers, Chinberg and DEW. And we are working on calling references this week. So myself, Ben, and Sal have divided and conquered to call. I don't know who else is calling. I can't remember the list.
Just us.
3 of us. Okay. So we're calling references to check for both DEW and Chinberg. And we have a call this Friday to kind of reconvene, talk about our findings. And I think Ben is working on a memo to prepare for council. So our target goal is to come back to council during our next city council meeting to share a full update, a status of, everything we've done, kind of a little bit of overkill, I think, into where we are now, which is going to be a decision, which is going to be monumental, very exciting. But I think we are getting there. We've done a lot of due diligence. We've done our research. We've, sometimes taken a little bit longer than people have wanted, but I think it will pay off in the end. And we'll pick a developer that we can move forward with and move to the next phase, which is a development agreement, which is a whole nother phase in negotiations and development and really getting into that nitty gritty detail of an agreement with one developer to help finalize and solidify what that development will look like in terms of our design and build phase. So we're getting there. Tons of work is happening. We might not talk about it all the time because we're working, but we will have a pause during our next city council meeting to provide an update. So I don't know if I missed anything.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay.
Well done. All right, thank you. All right, going to Zoom, Councillor Cohn.
Thank you. So I had a cemetery tour, I think 2 weeks ago. Sal also joined to me. And it was a great 2-hour tour. And we have so many stories to share with the rest of the world. And I just want to thank Patrick for his passion and doing such a great work, because when I went there, I was a little bit scared, but it's such a peaceful place. I don't want to be buried yet, but it will be a really great place to have some space there. And when we were discussing, I think our next step would be how we can integrate that space and those stories into our economic development projects. There are some ideas we might work on it and share with the public and the council. So this will be our next step to brainstorm some of the projects we can bring back to life using our cemetery and its stories, because other cities are doing cemetery tours, or they create special events. So again, it fills of so many stories, and it is very nice to hear them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cohn. Councillor Brown.
I have no report tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Clerk's report.
I just encourage folks to come out and vote. Not many people are, so come on out, get those numbers up. I just want to mention to you all, just looking forward to the election. I'm not going to pester you all to sign up for volunteer slots. I think I'm pretty well covered that way, but since you're all members of the BCA, I'm going to really encourage you to come out towards the end of the night. I think I've got enough people that we can cut down the time by quite a bit if I get a lot of turnout from you guys towards the end of the evening on election day. And I'll remind you about this as we get closer, because it's all the way over in the 11th. But I'm doing things a little differently this time. And with your all's help, I think we can really have it wrapped up nice and neat and clean and stress-free. So I'll be harassing you about that later.
Great, thank you very much.
As my first federal elections in Vermont, can you remind what the date is?
This is August 11th, Tuesday.
Great. Manager's report?
Yes. Okay, I'll be quick. I do just want to keep checking in about police department, stuff going on over there to keep you all apprised. So as you know, I appointed Jeff Pearson as the interim police chief, who has jumped right in, and he and I are talking daily on a number of things, bringing him up to speed on some tasks that he hadn't done in his prior role as detective sergeant, having conversations with the officers in the union about the schedule that they are looking to build, which will require some shifting of some folks in order to provide coverage. We are going to beef up our communications outwardly to the community about ways that the community can also protect itself to stay safe. Things like driving the speed limit, locking your doors at night, stuff like that, that can help with the community awareness on ways to limit their exposure, and requirement for a police response. Talking about ways to build morale, we are anticipating overtime for sure. That will come forward in a conversation as we round out the budget year for this year, present what our fund balances are, and anticipate what we're moving into for the forthcoming year as Heather closes out this year. So we'll look to that sort of end of August presentation. As of now, we think we can absorb costs, but we want to be transparent about what those are and explain those to you. We do have, one candidate who is going to be entering into the academy, has started training, and then we are vetting for an additional hire currently as well. And then there's some conversations regionally about how police departments can support each other, because, we're not the only police department that is understaffed, even though ours is drastic compared to some others. So I want to just keep you all apprised of those conversations. Looking ahead, just some items for future agendas. Obviously, Country Club Road, I think, will be the big thing on the 22nd. Some committees updates. So the Public Arts Committee is, their charge and their membership currently do not align. So they do not have a current quorum because the people who have been serving are no longer meeting the requirements for that. I am working on the committee's update so we can continue to move that forward. I want to bring forward the expenditure approvals for the tasers for the police department. So this is something you approved in your capital improvement budget, but because it's a sole source contract, needs to come to you for approval, and also revisit the cruisers purchase, because we're looking at how we can best equip everybody right now. And then a conversation around zoning fees. Those were brought to the Housing Committee yesterday for their input about whether or not we should be structuring our fee schedule to meet the budget targets that you all had identified for revenue, and want that committee's input on that. And I'm sure there are some things that I am forgetting that are in the hopper as well. And I'll leave that at that.
Okay, I'll just, for a mayor's report, I'll do just a quick echo. Jim, I had a great time with you and everyone else out there at the parade. It was really a terrific day. And also to echo some of what Manager Curry is saying about the police, just anecdotally from speaking to some of the officers out there. I mean, it's not an ideal situation for them, but what I'm hearing from the folks that I'm talking to is that they are optimistic about the future and they're committed to our community and to our city. And so if you have the opportunity, thank a cop. Right? They could use the extra love and they deserve it. With that, before we adjourn, we're going to have a special meeting immediately following this. Just logistical questions. Do we want to take a quick 10-minute break between? I think I wouldn't hate that, but I'm gonna follow the feel in the room. Everybody's sort of looking around like, no breaks, I'm saying. Do we need to stop? Sorry, go ahead, Councilor Alfano.
No, let's power through.
Let's power through. Okay. I appreciate the folks who have come for that, and sorry, we're 40 minutes behind. Do we need to stop the recording and start a new recording because it is a separate meeting? Okay, so with that, if there are no objections, this regular meeting of City Council is adjourned.